putting me in timeout. I'm gonna be too mean.
Yeah, but on this channel, like, you might handle yourself differently.
Right. Because it's our folks.
Right. It's
so
not
I'm
like just a regular somebody else's debate channel.
Yeah, I might be nice. I might be nicer in that situation. Mm-hmm. Right. You're right.
Yeah, you've already been funneled to this better location.
I think so. I think you're right. Let me see. Hold on. Let me check. Let me see if we're up on YouTube yet. Yep, there it is. Christian YouTubers ask us anything. Bada bing, bada boom.
Since we're in a chill period here, I am going to make a thumbnail.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. There's old Donnie Hoffman. User interface theory explained. That's user interface theory. That's Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman. My. I'm gonna set this for 10, and if we don't get any questions, then I will. MA drives me nuts, Vin. I mean, it's designed to drive you nuts. What's up, guys? We got nothing to do, so we're gonna field some ask me anything questions.
Yep, we're here to annoy you.
We're here to annoy you, or maybe enlighten you, or maybe both at the same time. Shout out to Ranter Matt.
We've been known.
Ranter Matt's been locked up in Facebook jail forever.
Jeez.
I guess he put something up there about like it was these people in the bed or something, and they were like getting high, and they were like something about Christians getting stoned or something like that, and YouTube. I mean, not YouTube. Facebook. Facebook took it down as like threats or something. Like it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
So with that college that I used to go to,
I'm like I am a Christian. I'm not offended.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not. Well, yeah, but it sounds like it's violence if it's just the words Christians getting stoned, like stoned to death.
Right.
So it sounds like it could be under violent category if you don't know the context.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a double entendre, and I thought it was quite.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny. It's pretty brilliant. But you know how that go. Okay, let's see. I got some questions here. Oh shit, Anti-Moss Beast got a feature in Knotfits. That's badass, bro. Good for you. Shout out to CB. Hello, children. That's what BC calls us. How is Jesus not a zombie? Well, that's actually a very good question. Jesus' resurrection from the dead is qualitatively different, and Christian resurrection in particular is qualitatively different than simply, coming up and rising in, after your death or your consciousness being reconstituted. In Christian theology, you get an upgrade in a resurrection, whereas in zombification, obviously, you get a degrade. You go from being a sentient human being that's got a mind, will, and emotions and the ability to think abstractly, and in zombification you don't have the ability to think abstractly. You're essentially a slave to your gut, or as the scripture says, their God is their stomach, etc., etc. So zombification is a degrade. Resurrection is an upgrade, and so that's why I'd say that's the biggest difference between Jesus and a zombie. Good question. Scarlett says, what's your favorite Korn song? Got the Life. Got the Life is my favorite Korn song. It's my favorite song of all time, honestly, though. So, there you go. Got the Life. Just finished celebrating Shabbat. Very nice feeling every time it comes around. I bet it is, man. I bet it is. Shout out to Jared Van Harn. Vin, I have some questions. Could I email them to you? You could, but that's the entire point of the Ask Me Anything. But sometimes people have
questions,
personal questions, and I understand that. VinIt'sAlready@gmail.com. Jonathan Simon, Music Independent. Shout out to Jonathan Simon. Good for you, buddy. Did you see season 3 of Chosen in theaters? I have not. I waited.
You were just talking about it.
I waited until it came out on VidAngel, which is how I'm watching it. So I'm watching one every week, basically. I'm actually a big fan of The Chosen. I thought they did a pretty good job. Very, very creative way.
Watching one a week. I'd like to watch that with you.
Rig, favorite movie ever?
Gone Girl.
Yeah, Sori's favorite is Gone Girl. I think mine is probably The Matrix.
Ooh.
Like,
shoot.
When The Matrix first hit, man, that was an insane, the concept.
Yeah. As
well as the tech. We had just never seen anything like it before. Right. It was the first time, really, in my mind, where they combined the tech, and it was such a really good story, and it was really well written. So, yeah, that's probably why. Shout out to Priest.
What? What's the good news?
I asked him what he thought about the miracle of the sun.
Oh yeah, what did he say?
And he doesn't take the Catholic position. He basically takes Jacques Vallée's position. Do you like Stanley Kubrick films? I think I do.
What are those?
That's like Stanley Kubrick is he's the guy that did
Can you guys list off some of the movies he was in?
What's that guy? It's like it was a Stephen King. I think the most famous one was like a Stephen King movie. Here's Johnny. It's like he was all crazy. Familiar. It was like a hotel. I forgot.
Oh, The Shining?
The Shining. Yeah. The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, that type of thing. Do you agree that Emma Vinglin is a propagandist like her mentor Cenk Uygur? I think Cenk is a lot more purposeful and a lot more connected and a lot more... Cenk is clearly a lot more money oriented than Emma is. I think Emma is I think Emma is way more influenced by Sam Seder than she is Cenk. I mean, Cenk is almost cartoonish. T.Y.T. is almost cartoonish at this point to a degree, unfortunately for me. I think Sam Seder is a more... His aura is a lot more serious, a lot more logical. So I don't think that Emma is purposely doing propaganda. I do think she's been massively propagandized, but that's not the same thing. Are you aware of the transgender subjects of The Matrix? The Wachowskis both came out as trans later. There were several hints in The Matrix, Agent Smith, dead naming Neo, etc., etc. Yeah, actually, I think the last Matrix kind of came out and explicitly said it. I haven't seen the last Matrix yet, but yeah, I definitely heard that interpretation for sure. Eyes Wide Shut. That was an interesting one. That was the Tom Cruise joint.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one was weird. I like Tarantino.
You know what?
Movies.
Mother was a pretty crazy one too.
Mother was Soraya's favorite movie that year.
Well, was it?
That year it was your favorite movie, yeah.
It was like a lot, because I don't like stuff that's gory, and it did get kind of gory. But it was... The way that you broke it down, it was crazy.
Yeah. Mother was an insanely amazing movie that both of us really enjoyed, and it wasn't until like, I don't know, a quarter of the way in. Well, we caught it pretty early.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, what they were doing.
For sure, but the way that you pulled it, because you noticed a lot more, it was just insane. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. What do you expect from Cocaine Beer? I don't even know what Cocaine Beer is, bruh. We're out of the loop. Cocaine Beer? Yeah, what is that? I want to know though. What Cocaine Beer? Okay. Is this thing even plugged in? Is this plugged in right? Because I can't hear the thing.
Oh no, it's not plugged in at all.
Do you like King Diamond? Yeah, I do like King Diamond. Definitely do. For sure. No one named Passive Glory, Spartacus the Killing, Lolita 2001. Just fingers up the Kubrick list. Ah, okay. Yeah, Tarantino movies are cool, man. It's just, I'm not a really big fan of gore and blood, all that jazz. So that's kind of, you know.
Me neither.
Awesome movie, Cocaine Bear. Okay, so we gotta check that out, Cocaine Bear. Is that out right now?
Oh no, I've never heard of it.
Would you watch it? Would you watch a movie named Cocaine Bear?
Cocaine beer or bear?
Bear, I think it's called.
Like, brrr.
Yeah, O'Shea Jackson.
Right.
Oh, it's in 2023. It's not.
Oh,
it's
not
a
even...
thriller. It's a dark comedy. So that sounds like it's gonna.
Yeah.
That
I
sounds
would watch
like
that
it might
for
be
sure.
fun.
For sure.
That sounds like it might be fun. Cocaine Bear.
Dark humor? I don't know. Maybe I could get into that. I'd have to see.
Yep.
I'm coming back soon enough. I'm just actually really enjoying. I'm really much enjoying doing this.
It's about a bear that kills people while he's high on cocaine.
That's what I guessed from once you said bear.
275 in the house, gang. What you want, boy? 275 in the house. 275. They drop bricks. Oh my God. So he eats like an entire brick of coke and then he goes on a killing spree basically.
Oh my word. That it must be so gross.
That's pretty. Yeah, bears are pretty nasty, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Those things can really get you. Let me see here. Let me see if my man D sent me an email about his questions. Let me see here.
Well, I'm almost done. I think
you almost got it?
Yeah.
We should have probably been practicing a little bit more on those songs.
Yeah.
Apparently a semi-true story. Holy shit. Can you imagine?
Oh my God, that'd be so awful.
What
a way to...
Any plans for the New Year's? No, I don't have any plans for the New Year's. I don't really care.
I always think
that
that's how he always feels about it. I always want to go to some event. Not with the kids. That's the thing. I would do like Christmas, all about the kids, have their mom here, everything. But New Year's should be ours. We should be going out, meeting some people.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Sam Seder's War on Christmas segment from back in the day? He did a spot on CNN. No, and I probably wouldn't have watched it. I don't understand the whole War on Christmas thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would, I obviously used to listen to Christian radio heavy. Matter of fact, there were a couple of years where I didn't watch any TV. It was just Christian radio. So I got home, it was just Christian radio. So every year they would bring up this War on Christmas, like, oh, I said Merry Christmas, and the lady said Happy Holidays.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, but why? And then it was like, we need to protest. This, I think one of them was like Starbucks. We need to protest because they're saying Happy Holidays.
There was also one with either Coke or Pepsi. I don't know. Maybe that one wasn't about Happy Holiday.
It was this big thing. Like,
Yeah.
I never, and I was trying to like be a good teammate. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But like,
when it first starts, but then after a while, you're like,
I couldn't really understand. Like, I couldn't feel like the way that they were feeling. You know what I'm saying? But now looking back, I realize, like, if you didn't come up with a certain kind of privilege, then these things to you don't seem like a big deal. But if you grew up with a certain kind of privilege, then your holiday not being centered is the end of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, yeah, shout out to Sam Seder for that. I'm sure he did a brilliant takedown on the supposed. Yeah, that's good.
Some 80s
on
in
the
there.
supposed. Yeah, the supposed war on Christmas. Do you guys meditate or have you gotten into it? What's your thoughts on trauma release meditation? I'm not sure what trauma release meditation is.
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
But yeah. Meditation is long. I forgot what my mind is all mush now.
I mean, I think meditation is great as long as your energies are like connecting with the right energy.
Are you still playing guitar? I mean, yeah, every once in a while I still play guitar.
What? You every day.
Yeah, I play guitar every day, my guy. Every single day. Every single day. You mentioned you guys are doing a reaction to George Carlin soon. Have you ever heard any Bill Hicks? It's Just a Ride monologue. It's one of the most positive bits I've heard from a comedian. No, I haven't. I'm hoping that when we get the Carlin episode done, that'll open the door to more people looking into stuff like that. I don't know how it's going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might be a giant flop, or it might be something like, holy shit, this is something new. So I'm actually really curious and excited to see how that's going to go. And I've made sure to, like, not watch any George Carlin or anything like that because I want to keep it as fresh as possible. Also, as a Vikings fan, I'm certain they're trying to kill me. Imagine being Matt Ryan, huh? This dude had a 28-3 lead on Tom Brady into the third quarter. Ended up losing the Super Bowl. And then today, they had a 33-0 lead going into like the third quarter, and they lost. So, shout out to Matt Ryan. If I was him, bro, I would just retire. You know, Tom has everybody's timelines all off. You know what I'm saying? Like, Russell Wilson is probably done. Matt Ryan's probably done. But everybody's looking at Tom like, oh, you're 45. So just because you're 36, you should still be able to play. It's like, no.
That changed the game.
Usually in the NFL, like, you're out of there by 31, 32. You were gone. So, yeah. What do I think about Sam Kinison? That name is familiar. Why is Sam Kinison? Who is that? Who is Sam Kinison? Let me check.
Friday After Next. I've never heard of that Christmas movie. I like watching Christmas movies before Christmas hits, but after.
Oh, he's a comedian.
I don't even like to watch it one day past Christmas.
Have you ever read any Soren Kierkegaard? What are your opinions on him? I've got a very cursory understanding of Kierkegaard. Soren was actually in the runnings for Dorian's name, actually. So we had Soren and Dorian, and then there was a third one. Basically means Dimitri.
Soren.
Soren.
That's pretty cool.
Dorian and Dimitri were.
I like it because it sounds like.
So I combined Dimitri and Soren, and we got Dorian.
Okay.
I did that. I named him after the book. But yeah. We ended up naming Seneca after Seneca anyway. So one of our kids got named after a philosopher. So there you go. Retired priest that became a comedian and a musician. Holy shit, that should be interesting. So this guy was a priest and he became a comedian and a musician. That kind of.
Oh wow. he couldn't do it. Well, good for him.
Yeah. He
didn't stick with it longer than he could.
Can't type, so I'll email. The Bay Area part of a brick tossed out of a small plane. In real life, it died on the spot. Oh, okay. So it did happen, but the bear died as soon as he ingested all the coke. That's interesting.
I wonder what made it keep eating it.
I mean, it's a, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's got to be feeling like the anti-Joe Montana. Hell yeah, bro. What is it? Finding some way to snatch defeat
from the jaws of victory.
The jaws of victory. I mean, at some point, bro, Matt Ryan, you gotta take some accountability, my guy. That shit was trash. That's cool. I named my son after the second strongest warrior of the Arthurian trilogy, Tristram. Aha! Comedians these days whine about being canceled. Lenny Bruce actually went to jail. Holy shit, they went to jail?
What? Why?
Probably decency laws and shit. You know how shit was back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. People talking about being canceled. Like, yeah, back in the day, they'd lock your ass up, bro.
That's true.
He's right. They would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to think, like, because when I came from Jamaica, like, you know, they weren't talking about free speech, all that type of shit in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. Like, there wasn't, Americans don't understand, like, there isn't this emphasis on freedom and individualism and all this shit in all these different countries. I remember one time, like, it was during the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and all the stand-up guys were making fun of Clinton. My mom was like, that's the president! You can't say that about the president. And, like, to this day, like, I won't do it. Like, I won't I'm not a fan of like disrespecting the president. Like there was a certain level of like respect that you had for, and like you could not. There's a lot of shit in Jamaica you cannot say publicly on a public forum. Like period.
Wow.
They'll jam you up. So yeah, like Americans.
And it's still like that now.
I mean, how am I? I've been there in a while, but I mean, I don't know. But yeah, obscenity charges. Yeah. See what I'm saying? They had obscenity charges. They sent him to jail. I mean, holy shit. That's like, man. So like on the one hand, like relative to cancel culture, like on the one hand, like I do still think it's important to talk about it a lot, because if you don't, we can easily revert back to those time periods. But at the same time, like you got to understand, bro, like shit was different. Like not very long ago. You know, the things that we just, take for granted now or whatever, like, dude, like Marilyn Manson, there a lot of times I'm like, yo, I didn't think he was good. There is times I'm like, yo, I don't know, bro. That dude was getting death threats heavy. Jeez. But Manson was getting death threats from the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's wild. It's one thing if, like, you get a death threat, I mean, we've gotten death threats. Everybody gets death. Well, not everybody gets death threats. I don't want to normalize it. But, like, I don't want to let's not normalize we've gotten death. It's like, whatever, man. You ain't going to do nothing. But the cops are right there. You know what I'm saying? And plus, like... I
mean, it was unlikely, but at the same time, it could have still happened.
I mean... I wasn't worried about it. You know what I'm saying?
I wasn't either. That doesn't mean we shouldn't... And
the other thing too, I'm like, yo, if something happened, like we'd be like, especially at that time period, like at that time, like we would have been fine. But if the cops are giving you a death threat, that's something completely different, bro. That is something completely different. If the cops are threatening your life, dude, you're in a lot of trouble. What's your thoughts on Andrew Tate? I'm trying to interpret. So Andrew Tate, you know who Andrew Tate is, right? Remember that time we went to that hotel? And it was that guy, it was a tall guy, UFC dude with the glasses. He was talking to the girl. They had that, like, 1 hour, whatever. You don't know Andrew Tate is. Okay.
Well, wait, we saw him?
Yeah, me and you went to the hotel. Okay. The last time we went to a hotel.
Yep.
And, like, in the morning, I was watching, like, an interview with this.
Okay.
You don't remember.
And then what happened?
Well, the big thing, this guy, he's been canceled everywhere. Like, all of his stuff got taken down. He said, misogynist stuff. Women are a man's property. Jesus. Men can cheat on women. Women can't cheat on men. That type of thing. But it's more like, this is how the world is. Which, obviously, from a Christian standpoint, like, men are the leaders of society, but because we're infected with sin, we're going to abuse that leadership and not use it as servant leadership, which is the way that Christ taught us. But you're going to take that leadership and lord it over people. So there is a sense in which what he is saying is true, but it's not good. It's a bad truth.
Yeah.
And it's a truth that needs to be reformed and changed. But what he's done, and I haven't listened to a lot of Andrew Tate, but what he's done is he's basically said, this is the way things should be. So, like, you have men, abusing their power in society, and as such, you get this backlash of feminism, which you've got multiple versions of feminism. We all know that. And feminism was saying, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. And Andrew Tate basically says, well, you guys have had about 40 to 50 year run at it. How is society doing, right? So, no, it's not going to work. So let's just go back to the way things were before type of thing, right? And so he said that and a couple other controversial things. To be honest with you, I'm not very sure. But as Kirby says, Andrew Tate is a dick, but chunks of what he says make sense. Here's my thing. Like I've said this, when you look at the phenomena of guys like that, or even Kevin Samuels, where now there's this genre of guys who are, quote, alpha males running around calling themselves alpha males and the whole Kevin Samuels ethic, disrespecting women, saying all these types of things. But at the same time, there are things that Kevin Samuels saying that were true.
Yep.
They were harsh truths.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're a single mom with 2 kids. Why would a guy in his early 30s who makes, a 7-figure salary, why would he choose you instead of a 25-year-old girl with no kids?
Right.
Like,
right.
Be rational. And that's Kevin Samuels. And you got to understand, like, the black community and that mentality is absolutely there. Like, it's absolutely there, especially in the ghetto. So there was always, like, some truth mixed into it, but they would take that truth and it was just packaged in all this misogyny. And in my view, hate for women. Like, there are things that Kevin Samuels said that was true. And I'm sure I know more about Kevin Samuels than Andrew Tate. I'm assuming that Andrew Tate is basically the white version of Kevin Samuels is the black version. The whole high value man whole idea. And so, like, that's a genre that's popped up, like, in the last 5 years. And it's a lot of, like, you need to be, we'll train you how to be rich. And, I think Tate's getting he's got a lot of Amazon money. He does FBA. Okay. And so if you can make Amazon FBA work for you,
yep,
you can absolutely make I mean, we do Amazon FBA. Like, our baby formula brand is sold through Amazon FBA. So you can be successful there. But it's sort of, the other thing I think that's probably problematic, like in a cursory view of Andrew Tate, is like that there's only one way to be a man. What is his way? You're a UFC fighter. You can beat everybody up. You have a bunch of money. You're self-sufficient. You have your house in order, and that's the only way to be a man. And there's a lot of different ways to be a dude. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different ways to be a man, and you do have those archetypes in the scripture, like David, who is like a jihadist and a warrior and undefeated fighter, but then you also get access to David's diary, and he cries all the time. Mm-hmm. He's extremely emotional. Mm-hmm. And David wrote songs about his best friend Jonathan. And he in the song he says, "Your love was better than the love of women." Like, yeah. And so people, I don't think that David had any LGBT inclinations at all, but the point is he really loved this dude. Mm-hmm. And I understand what that's like. Like, if you're in the shit with somebody and they come through for you, you absolutely love them more than you love, your little girlfriend or whatever. When that's how it was for us in the hood. Like, I love my dudes a lot more than I love, You know what I'm saying? Because I was in the middle of it with them. But the point is like you get a more well-rounded person, a guy who could absolutely, like, take out 20 Philistines, but he's gonna write poetry and he's gonna write music, and he played a stringed instrument. Like, he was a rounded person, and he was very in touch with his emotions. And the kind of masculinity that Andrew Tate and the rest of those guys project, to me, are, it's only one way to be a dude, and most dudes cannot fit into that archetype. I certainly can't. I'm a very, very emotional person, so I can't. I guess I'm not a manly man, relative to Andrew Tate and the rest of those boys. You know what I'm saying? Because, if I turn on the news on Monday and I hear about, more kids getting torn to shreds at school, I'm gonna cry about it, and I don't care. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So that's my understanding of Andrew Tate. I haven't like I said, I haven't been able to really look into, like, what. I mean, he's got a Bugatti, he's got a very fancy car, blah blah blah. So, that's where I'm at with it. Shout out to him. Logic can be productive or not. Logic in some things, as in Tate's nonsense, does not make it right in the practical sense. Holy shit. He said, if you put yourself in a position to be raped, you must bear some responsibility. If he said that, what? Holy shit. That's horrible. That's horrible. Wow. Take some responsibility.
My God.
I mean,
That's a really sick thing to say. What is wrong?
You know, the first time that our girls got a taste of toxic masculinity relative to, you know, the sexual stuff, you know, I remember pulling, you know, our daughter aside and saying, listen, sweetheart, you can wear whatever you want to wear. And whatever people do in response to what you wear is on them. It's not on you. However, you have to understand this is how dudes are. Mm-hmm. So you're always going to have to do a risk assessment as to balancing out your freedom with the unfortunate reality of there's a lot, and I explained to her, there's a lot of dudes that, you know, the way that you see me go after the boys relative to girls and sexuality and all that, like, that's not the teaching that a lot of these guys are getting. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you got to understand that. Mm-hmm. So you are not in any way, shape, or form responsible for the way that dude talked to you, and we're going to handle him. But I want you to understand this is the world you live in, and so you're going to have to always balance that shit out. And so that to me is the message. Trying to hold a girl or a woman responsible. I don't give a fuck if she's walking around naked. I don't care if she's walking around with a sign that says, I don't care what it says. To me, being a man, part of being a man is to be able to fucking have some discipline. Control yourself.
For sure. Yeah.
Control yourself. You know what I'm saying? Tech Gotti is saying he never said that, bro. They're saying it's toxic to be a man, like protecting your family.
Who's they? That's saying that?
Yeah. Like, I remember the whole toxic masculinity thing was big for a while, and I never interpreted the phrase toxic masculinity as being a man is bad. I interpreted it as there is a way to be a bad man. But I do think there are some people, though, that do characterize traditional masculinity as toxic. Mm-hmm. The potential for violence relative to protecting a home, for example. Mm-hmm. Well, how are you going to get to the point where, you know, I asked one of my friends this, you know, and we go back and forth. I said, you know, there's a difference between men and women, and if you hear that knock at 2:00 in the morning downstairs and that person's not supposed to be in your house, what are you going to do? You're going to do rock, paper, scissors to see who goes down there to interface with that bad guy? Or are you as a man going to tell your girl, lock the door, call the police, I'm going down?
Right.
Like, okay, well, he goes, well, obviously B. I'm like, okay, great. Well, here's the thing. There are certain experiences and mentalities that you grow up with to get you to that point, right? And so, you know, we see it with the boys, like, you know, like Reza. The kid did a belly flop onto the ground. Like, he jumped from the bed and splashed onto the ground. He's got this giant eye chimney. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, they're always torn up somewhere.
Yeah.
Like there's always some bruise or scab or something on the girl, on the boys. You know, Sailor wasn't like that as a baby. You know what I'm saying?
I had a friend who was always scared that she was gonna, the cops were gonna get called because her sons were always bruised up. And I was like, well, I don't know. I think boys do that. Now that I have boys, I'm like, okay, they're always doing something.
There wasn't one day where I wasn't torn up on something, and there wasn't 1 month where somebody didn't have a broken something or stitches here or whatever.
Gosh.
So, you know, like, my point is, it's those experiences and that willingness to take risk and that willingness to put yourself in physical harm.
Yeah.
And the ability to kind of demythologize pain that young boys have. You know what I'm saying? Like when I got hit in the face the first time at boxing practice or whatever, where I took my first roundhouse in Taekwondo, like, all those things add up to, there's a knock on the door, I'm going in, because I spent my entire life testing the limits, doing dangerous things for a 4-year-old, that type of thing. And that is what some people are calling that toxic. Encouraging risk-taking in young boys, those types of they're calling crazy. That toxic, and that's what I'm saying. That's where I draw the line and say, whoa, we need that. we need boys who will jump off a bed and fuck themselves up a little bit.
That's crazy.
You need that. Now, obviously, when that happened, what did they do? He cried. I picked him up, hugged him, kissed him, rocked him until he was okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's something in that boy that makes him say, "Let me push this limit." And that time he went too far.
The next time you grabbed him before he could jump.
Next time I grabbed him before he could jump because he was going to do that shit. Yeah, you saw he was going to do that shit again. Didn't learn his lesson, right? So, like, my point is you do not overnight become the guy that's going to go downstairs and confront that guy. Mm-hmm. You have to experience those things over and over again as a child to get to that point. So if you're calling that toxic, then I'm out. But I think it's a good balance. A kid, takes a risk.
That's crazy. So they think almost universally most boys are toxic?
Yeah, some did. But when we were going through the whole toxic masculinity debate with the Gillette commercial, somebody did send me to a link, and they had a definition of toxic masculinity, like encouraging boys to take risks, encouraging competition. Somebody has to be a winner and a loser, that type of thing. Like that's the real world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I just think that's didn't James Cameron just say something about testosterone as a toxin and has to be removed from all men? Yeah, like shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like testosterone is a toxin.
I guarantee if our country was in any like place where we thought we were going to get threatened and they would all of a sudden we wouldn't have an issue with.
Yeah, you want
that protection. We would want that.
You want some toxic people. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. But it's just like anything in culture. People like swing things like the other way. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get offended by the toxic masculinity thing. But that's one of the ironies of the thing. It's like supposedly all the testosterone-filled manly men were really hurt. You know what I'm saying? By the whole, especially the Gillette commercial. They were like legit hurt about it. But I'm like, hey, I thought you were a man's man. You shouldn't care about what these lip-wristed people got to say about you. I guess you're not as tough as you think you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, bro. Yeah. But like our house, like there are very clear gendered roles in our house. Mm-hmm. Like if somebody, and we've done it in real time. Like somebody steals your sister's bike, like you're gonna have to go and do work, and whatever the consequences are, we'll deal with them later. And my boys have, they got put in real life situations, and we tested that shit out. Yep. At the same time, I would say that our boys are more affectionate than the girls are. Mm-hmm. The boys will grab you and give you a hug and a kiss. Me too. They'll grab me and give me a hug and a kiss. The girls are when you leave. No,
the girls are,
when you're leaving. Like if you leave or when they first see you, the girls want to do that. But the boys will just randomly do it. That's the difference with me anyway. So yeah, like I believe. Hey, what's up, Kai? I believe that you can still teach your kids traditional value roles, including traditional gender roles, while simultaneously teaching them to be well-rounded, complete human beings that are in touch with their emotions, are also in touch with their, with everything else. I don't think you need to have one or the other, but saying things like testosterone is a toxin. Holy shit. Oh, shit. Testosterone built the Western world, you fucking weirdo. Yeah. So that's my take on that whole genre of situation. I think that I would put Jordan Peterson in a different category. Other people collapse Jordan Peterson into all this, but I think that the Kevin Samuels, Andrew Tates, Jordan Peterson to a degree, I think there is a massive father wound in America. I think that there is, for whatever reason. I saw it in the ghetto. Obviously, our dads weren't there, but I just think that men as a whole have abdicated their roles to guide and lead society on a macro level. I think in the 50s and 60s, men understood that was their job. But now, because we've flattened everything, because we're trying to pretend that there are no differences between genders and that there are no gender roles, men have taken they've neutralized their contribution to society. And so now there's a giant vacuum.
Yeah.
My kids would not be drawn to Andrew Tate. They wouldn't be drawn to Kevin Samuels. They might be interested in Peterson, but they come to me to guide them and show them all those things. And so I just look at all those. I think that the rise of that whole genre on YouTube or whatever, on social media, reflects the fact that we actually do need men to be men.
Oh, for sure.
We actually do need fathers.
Yep.
And a guy like Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson or whatever is not going to be able to do the job. There's 320 million people in America. And so as long as we want to play around with foundational ideas like gender roles and gender in general, you're gonna get blowback like this. You're gonna get people that are gonna fill that vacuum. So all I could say is, look, man, if you're a man, fucking stop playing around. If you're a man, you're 25 years old, fucking get married, bro. Get married and have some kids and start building some shit. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you look at all Andrew Tate and all the rest, that's all they're saying. Get on top of shit. Stop letting the world beat you up.
Right.
But again, if you didn't have a dad to show you that
purpose.
shit, if you didn't have a dad to show you that, and for me, it was my Taekwondo teacher. I talk about, I didn't spend a lot of years with him. I wasn't a black belt or anything, but, Sensei Kim, man, he never gave me a bunch of positive. He gave positive affirmation, but you just had to understand the code, the language. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when he looked at my form and he looked at it and he walked away, didn't say anything. That was a positive affirmation, because you were not going to hear from Kim, Sensei Kim. Like to this day, I would never ever address him by his first name ever. To be honest, I don't even know his first name. To be honest with you, but he would only talk to you if you fucked up. If you didn't fuck up, he'd kind of look and nod, and then he'd go to the next guy, and that was enough for me. And he'd say, when you come in here, I don't want to hear it. I don't. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I don't want to hear anything about mom this, mom that. When you're in here, you this is how you're doing it. It was very good for me.
Did you do it when you were at home also, or you just did it when you were there?
No, because it was so chaotic when I got home. When we were in Taekwondo, everything was ordered. Literally, everybody had a spot. You know what I'm saying? It was ordered by degrees in your belt and stuff like that, but you had to earn that belt. So everybody that was in front of you had put in the work and had earned, and he wouldn't just give it to you either. There were people, it was time for testing and they just failed. He's like, well, you got to do better.
Yep.
See you later. Then let me try again. Nope. You should have tried at your house. Literally, so everything was so ordered. Then when I got home, everything was all chaotic. There's no rhyme and reason for anything. So, yeah.
Wow.
So, so there's a balance there. There's a balance here for sure. Gender roles have always existed, and for literally hundreds of years, they have changed. The pull yourself up by your bootstrap line ain't it. Well, yeah, I don't believe in the whole bootstrap thing. And if you've ever watched Middle America, most of the time people accuse me of being a socialist. I don't think I'm a socialist either, but I'm not a fan of the bootstrap thing. But there is a difference though between pull yourself up by your bootstraps and saying use everything, use all the gifts that God has given you and the support systems around you, and apply yourself. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a 5-year plan and you're just playing video games, I don't look down on you. I get it. It's a fucking hard world we're in. But the problem is, in 5 years, if you're in the exact same place, you can't blame the capitalists for that, bro. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying there's got to be a balance between social consciousness and personal accountability. You got to have a plan, and you got to have mountaintops where you can execute that plan. And you got to be able to do that. You can't sit there and complain about corporations and this and that and all the horrible things that are you got to do some shit. That's all I'm saying. The thing is, we can't get married now because the women are getting ran through waiting till they're at a prime to get married, and now You sound like Kevin Samuels. I mean, I don't think that that's true for all women. And secondly, I mean, what does ran through mean? I mean, she's having sex with other people. I mean, most of these girls are not having sex with other girls. They're having sex with other dudes. So who's running through these girls? My point is, instead of running through the girl, how about you commit to her, is what I'm saying. Commit to the girl. Find a girl and commit to her. And you guys work together and plan and build something. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what happened with me and Soraya. I mean, look, I barely have a high school diploma. Barely. Took me 5 years and barely. And by God's grace, I've been able to do a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of it has been, I've had advocates in certain career fields that have, advocated for me, but I had to come through, right? So it can be done. We all have challenges. It can be done, but I'll tell you what, like, me and Sori, it's like, we are absolutely partners. There's the romantic feelings of love, but at the end of the day, she's like a badass business partner. And our family right now is a machine of commerce. And I think, people ask me about like YouTube, like, hey, give me a YouTube tutorial, and I stay away from them because I just think that the way that we do it is extremely unique. And if you didn't start it the way that we started it, you're not going to be able to replicate what we do. So I don't feel like in good conscience to even put out one of those, hey, I'll train you how to be a YouTuber with 100,000 subs. But I will say, like, what our family's currently doing relative to like a family business and things like that, I do believe anybody could. Mm-hmm. I do believe anybody could if they get focused and they focus on building. I absolutely believe that a lot of people could replicate what we're doing right now. So that's how I feel about it. It's funny that you're talking about marriage. I was coming to this conclusion yesterday. I'll stay single for a while and eventually get married to a wifey. Yeah, man. I would say get it done sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. Sooner rather than later. A lot of our understandings of marriages are really based on, to be honest with you, Wall Street and Hollywood. Yep. To be honest with you. Yep. So, Hollywood has an understanding of what love is, what it's supposed to look like, what the purpose of marriage is, all that type of shit. But there are some real basic financial ramifications to marriage and not being married. Yep. If you want to talk about poverty, it's the quickest way to poverty.
Is to not be married.
Quickest way to poverty is to be 25 plus and not be married. It's just a fact. Mm-hmm. It's just a fact. Mm-hmm. But I'm starting to see now, like that other couple that that the new one, mm-hmm. like he's got that mindset, and she's a little bit on the younger side, but she can be molded into a good number two. I don't think,
When you originally said that, I thought you said that he would make a good number two, and I was like, wow, that was really surprising to hear you say something like that.
No. Okay. He's on his shit. Like, he's a little, but he's on his shit. That's good.
Maybe they'll be able to make that work and really go somewhere.
Yeah, if they really committed to it, they absolutely could. That's the thing. It's like, people look at relationships, and it's almost like outside of your hands. People falling out of love, blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, yeah, if you want to have the Hollywood, TV shit, the Shakespeare shit, the thing is that, like, if you want to have the Shakespeare shit, that's great, but everybody dies in the end.
Whoa.
So, yeah. Shout out to Romeo and Juliet, but they're fucking dead, bro. Mm-hmm. So, and they died on some stupid shit, too. I mean, originally, Romeo and Juliet was a comedy. It's like, look at these dumbass kids. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Did it turn into a drama?
We turned it into something bigger than that. So, like, yeah, definitely there's love there. Everybody knows, like, emotionally, like, how I feel about you, but there's a whole other dynamic to our relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, we're business partners, and we're damn good business partners.
We are.
We really are. Yep. And, we got YouTube channels that have literally 1 million subscribers that are not making 10% of what we're doing. So, right. It just depends, guys, on what your strategy is. Would be cool if you react to a Fresh and Fit podcast. I don't know.
Fresh and Fit.
I don't know what that is. What's that?
Where would I find that?
I don't know. Maybe Google.
That's what we're trying.
Good. I was literally coming to post a question for you, and here you are. Okay, Nem. Let's see. Let me isolate all of Nem's comments to make sure I'm not ignoring him. I dig the headband. Lot related, but it's
guess this.
Male self-improvement. Monday, Money Monday, Womanizer Wednesday, and Fitness Friday. Okay, I see what this is. I see what this is now. Is there a timetable for the core live stream? When is the core live stream going to happen?
Well, let me look. If they don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. You got to get with your leader and have your leader message me. Let me just check. I know we do have a couple of streams coming up. Nope.
Holy shit. Females don't want relationships now because they get hundreds of DMs from high-value guys who just want to bang. I just don't think that that's true. I just don't think that's true, Gotti. Females don't want relationships now because they get hundreds of DMs from high-value. No, that's not true. That's not true. What I will say is females that look like Sori probably get hundreds of messages from high-value men. And if you're not in that category, then adjust your expectations. I'm sure not every female on the planet are getting hundreds of DMs from high-value men. But just like with Kevin Samuels, how it's like you have the delusional, 34-year-old woman with 2 kids who wants, a 6'2" guy who makes 7 figures a year to be with, and then says there's no good men around. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you're being unrealistic. Well, the same thing is the other way.
Yep.
Like, I'm sorry, but if, you don't have the game for somebody that's as naturally beautiful as that, then adjust your expectations. It's the same principle. Mm-hmm. I could promise you, I can send you a list of women right now, probably. We're not getting a bunch of DMs from high-value men, but you probably don't want to spend the rest of your life with that girl because she might be a little bit chunky or she might be a little plain Jane or whatever. But you can't say that there are no women that want relationships anymore because all the high value guys are just, messaging them then have sex. Come on.
Yeah, there's no... Actually, the core leader should just reach out to me for sure. Who is the core leader? Yeah, just have your leader reach out because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think... I think men and women will always interact the same way. There will always be enough men and women to go around. But the fact of the matter is that people just have to understand that they have certain kinds of expectations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure, yeah.
And in order to have those expectations, you're in a very, very small window. Relative to women, you're in a very small window because a lot of it has to do with your age and what your body can do. And relative to men, you have to be at a certain price bracket to be able to have access to all the kinds of women that people want. Mm-hmm. In reality, it's like, look, man, we had a guy. I'm not talking about you, Gotti, because I don't know you, but we had a guy, and he was. How would you rate him 1 to 10, JB? 2. Yeah, I would say the guy was a 2 myself. I mean, no homo, but I mean, I think the guy was a 2. I mean, morbidly obese, not very good looking, didn't have personality-wise too. Was not a very.
There wasn't really anything like.
Financially, he was in bad shape.
There was nothing about him that was like, okay, but that's a 10. That's a good.
Right,
everything
and he was saying
bar.
He was saying he couldn't take anything other than an 8.
Right.
Remember that conversation? It was such a strange. I was so uncomfortable. I wanted to be away from the conversation as soon as I possibly could because the lack of self-awareness was killing me. Mm-hmm. But he was like, "Yeah." He's like, nothing lower than an 8. It's like, beloved, you're a 2.
Oh, why?
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
It's like, that was his big complaint. Like he was always complaining that, girls are too demanding and this and that. It's
he wasn't funny, like. Because humor can people overlook stuff sometimes for humor. There was like, I really don't know. There was nothing there. He really didn't figure out what he was good at, huh?
He was good at complaining and feeling sorry for himself. You know what I'm
And
saying?
that will make it so you never really find what you're really good at.
The bottom 90% of men get left with the leftovers. See that right there, Gotti? That's probably your problem, bro. What do you mean the leftovers? What that mean? What does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean that the girl is a leftover? What is that?
Yeah.
Like, are they getting left with you as the leftover then? Because you're not part of that 10%? Because you don't have a big fancy YouTube channel and you don't have a big fancy Amazon business, so does that mean that you're a leftover too? You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to be careful about how we're talking about people. And sometimes, like, the shit that we say reveals why we're in the situations that we're in. What's up, Joe?
He's a 2. He wants an 8. He just wants to have an even 10. That's all.
Yeah, he was a 2. He wanted an 8. Yeah. But if you would have said that to that dude, if you would have said, "Beloved, you're a 2," it would have been this big thing.
Oh, my
Men
word.
are oppressed. Blah 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 blah. Yada 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 yada. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is crazy to me.
Yep.
Exactly. Every girlfriend was beautiful and awesome because she liked little old me. Exactly. But this is what I mean by, like, you know, Wall Street determining also, like, what our concept of love is. Wall Street and Hollywood is determining what everybody's understanding of what real love is and what marriage is and all the rest of it.
Don't you think a lot of that is also, like, pushed forward by, like, capitalist agenda? Like, you know, like, for instance, engagement rings and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, that's part of
100%.
romanticism, but it's also a big moneymaker. And that was something that they started,
100%.
you know what I mean, on purpose. There's that,
100%.
there's cards, there's flowers, and all these different things that make girls feel like if they don't get those things, that they're not loved.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And, you know, there's always been that kind of, you know, money exchange kind of ritual. You know, the dowry for the woman and all that. So, I mean, that predates capitalism by literally thousands of years. Can you explain what you mean by Wall Street influencing relationships? So that would be one. You got to have the big wedding. If you don't have the big wedding, it's a disappointment. If you don't have a good honeymoon, big honeymoon somewhere, it's a disappointment. You got to have, like, the 9-layer cake.
Yeah.
You know, just the entire understanding of what we look at with a wedding is almost, you know, it's all financial.
I mean, that kid that was, you know, putting money aside, not using his insulin money because he was preparing for a wedding. I mean, that right there is just a horrible, horrible example of that. And nobody knew that, like, he didn't have enough money, that he was, that's just, God.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like this dude literally, like, risked his life and ended up dying because he wanted to give her, you know, the wedding she, quote, deserved.
Right.
And I'm sure he didn't consult her, or maybe they did talk about it, but I'm sure if he could have said, "Hey, would you like to find me dead in the kitchen, or would you rather, you know, us have a bootleg wedding?" She would have taken B any day of the week. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of pressure on especially young couples. Like, when you're young and you're fucking 22, 23 years old, I mean, you're just starting out. Especially in America, you got a whole bunch of student loan debt, all types of shit. Why would you know what I'm saying? Like, you should not expect to have any giant big, but you know how that shit go. Leftover is she ran through by men in over 30 and out of their prime years. Me as a man, I just want a woman that has small body count and at least a 7 on looks. Fit body and not a bitch. Well, again, I find it extremely hard to believe that it's impossible to find women in their 20s, because all women in their 20s are being DM'd by high-value men who, quote, run through them. And then when they get to their 30s, they're all ran through and they're bitches. What does that mean, she's a bitch? Does that mean she's got an opinion? Does it mean that she's
That's
strong?
what I was thinking. I'm like,
what does that mean? Does
not
it
a
mean
bitch.
she's strong-willed? And again, it's like,
and
why
what
are we
flaws
using
can this woman
terminology
have?
like ran through? Because she had sex, so, like, did the girls run through you? Are you a virgin? Like, this is a serious question. Like, as a man, you're the runner. Like, yo, I did that, but the woman is the one that gets ran through, and now she's damaged goods by the time she's 30. I don't believe that. I don't believe that all women in their 20s are inaccessible because they're being DM'd and having random sex with high value men. I think what's really happening is there are people that their game is kind of low, and they're not very good at talking to those women, and they're not good at positioning themselves as somebody that's desirable.
I agree, Jonathan.
And they're insecure. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't know you. I'm just saying, like, to me, that's a ridiculous idea that we can't get 20-year-old girls or whatever. And I don't care if the woman's in her 30s. The idea that, like, what is she supposed to live in a convent? I mean, we're in the United States of America, for God's sake. It's 2022. We're at 2023 at this point. Like, who determines what a quote high body count is? Who determines all these things? Like, and why are women being penalized for, like, they're not having lesbian sex for the most part. They're having sex with other men. Mm-hmm. So why is she being penalized for taking part in an action that you're taking part in with the same demographic of women? I don't get it. And here we go. Ran through is like 40 body count. How many women have a 40 head? Come on. Look, this is not the real world. I just don't. Okay, your sister was 19 with a 21 body count. Okay, that's not normal. And most girls at that age are not doing that. Like, come on.
Wow.
That's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I just think if you can't get a girl in her 20s, it's because your game is low. If you can't get a girl in your 20s to, like, commit to and marry to, it's because your game is low and you need to fix your game. It's not the girl's part. It's not the girl's problem. Like, it's your.
It might not just be your game, or unless you can include, what is your job? What is your personality? What is your, what is your baggage?
I'm putting all of that.
Okay, all that's your game.
All
it's not
that
just
shit
the
is
way
your
that
game.
you are smooth about approaching her. It's
that shit is.
What type of person are you? What do you have to offer as the leader of a family? Like, can you do that, or is there nothing in your life that shows any sort of leadership capability?
Yeah,
that you've been able to really stick it out and even hold a job for X amount of time or whatever.
That shit is crazy to me. Let me see. NemFX has a question. The question is more of a request, a song review by Satan himself, no less, up there. Oh, yeah. We're not doing song reviews tonight. We're just doing an Ask Me Anything. I'm an electrician and unfit and go to the gym. Yeah, that's fine. But, Gotti, obviously there's a problem. Now, if you want to say the locus of the problem is all with the women, you can say that if you want. But I thought part of being an alpha male was taking extreme responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not. Maybe that's toxic.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd encourage you to check out the Jocko Willink podcast about extreme responsibility, where you take accountability for your own stuff. Because I'm sorry, man, but if we're all these big alpha males and we're all fit and doing all this shit, then if you can't accomplish your objective, then you can't blame the girls for that. That's got to be on you, right? That's part of being an alpha male, right? Is taking accountability. Why are you talking about the girls so much? Like, again, like, I'm not defending women. I don't feel like the women need to be defended. I'm just reacting to what you're saying. What you're telling me is you're having a hard time finding a woman that you desire, but you're not taking any accountability for that. But at the same time, you're an alpha male, which is like that's the shtick, right? With the modern sort of man movement, right? Like, I'm an alpha male, blah blah. Okay, great. Then you can't. Then what are you doing wrong? Right. You got to ask yourself what you're doing wrong then. Because if you're putting it all on the woman, then the women have all the power. Then you're not an alpha male, according to those people. Why would a woman want guaranteed... See, that sounds like something Amy would say. Why would a woman want guaranteed poverty by dating someone with no future? That's a very good question. It's a good question.
Oh, I know.
And, they get called gold diggers, whatever. I don't have a problem with the quote gold digger. I don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you a beauty digger? Because am I a beauty digger because, I'm with an extremely beautiful person? Does that make me women want security and all that. And if you've demonstrated that you're able to accumulate enough resources and capital and make it so that she could feel secure, I don't see a problem with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, my girls are going to be different. My girls are never going to have to deal with a man relative to money.
There's a sense in which it's more shallow to
Emily in the house.
Like, if a gold digger is always looked at as like the worst of all, but really going after someone just because they're attractive is probably the worst. Because what actual value does it have if being really attractive but he doesn't have a job or he doesn't whatever, or the other person that, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No. Yeah, I agree. Jay in the house. It means she works in a mine shaft. Mining for gold is an occupation. What? Because she's a gold digger. She's working in a mine shaft. Yeah, man. I just... That to me is some of the holes in the whole, like, this new sort of alpha male masculinity movement. Because, like, on the one hand, they'll play that position, but then when things aren't going well for them, instead of taking accountability and saying there must be a flaw in what I'm doing, they put it on the woman.
Right.
I'm like,
yeah,
well, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You don't get to strut around and say you're an alpha male, and then when the shit doesn't go well, you blame it all on the woman. That's not how it works, bro. Like, it's one or the other. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So. A man provides. Gustavo Fring. Yeah. Shout out to Gustavo. I mean, although I will say in our relationship right now, it's really, really 50-50 now. Because everything that we do is together. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, before...
That's the ultimate goal.
Before I cut the cord, I was in a... I was doing six figures, y'all. I said, yo, I'm out. He's like, what? I said, yo, I'm out. He's like, yo, take a vacation. I was like, nah, I'm out.
Take a vacation.
He did. He said, I'll pay you for a month. Take a vacation. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm out. And he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to do YouTube. He's like, what? Vin, what? Yeah. All right. I've got two friends who've been dating since 15, 16 years old. Should I tell them to get married now? Hell yeah, bro. Tell them to get married yesterday, bro. Get married.
I mean, you might as well.
This shit is not working.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons.
Get together, build together.
Kevin Samuels, all these people,
something.
That's one of the reasons they're so big right now.
Yep.
There's a gap. I know you're right. I'm just saying it's harder to find a wife. Women in their 20s say they will just play the field. Well, then you got to figure out where the hole in your game is, Gotti.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know.
You got to figure out the hole in your game, bro. You got to hold your game somehow. I could tell you what. I could tell you that if I was still in the field and I wanted some girl in her mid-20s, I'd get one. I would.
I know. Yeah.
And if I didn't get one, I'd be in the lab going, "What the fuck am I? What's going on here?" But I wouldn't even be in that situation. I'd get one. So that's how I feel about it. You should react to the song "I Want to Be Me" by Typo Negative. Yeah, man. I just think that our understanding, men's understanding of like, what we deserve and all the rest of it, I think it's a little bit off. I think there are a lot of really, really cool, high value women that don't necessarily look perfect or way perfect, but would be badass teammates, would be a great mom, would be a great business partner, awesome business mind, flexible in bad situations. I never hear any of these high value people talk about those characteristics. Right. How flexible is she in a bad situation? How quickly can she pivot in situations? How does she handle interpersonal conflict? What is her business mind? Does she have any skills that she can apply to any business context? Or is it like Shariah, where she knew nothing about technology and then we started a YouTube channel, so she self-educated herself to be our video editor? Does she have the ability to do that kind of thing? There are a lot of factors that go into what makes her an awesome person. So when I'm hearing people talk about there are no women, blah blah blah, there's no women in their 20s, it gets reduced to how many people the girls had sex with. Mm-hmm. And I'm not hearing anything else about any other attributes. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the guy, by the time he's 30 whatever, has had sex with 14, 15 girls, and that's okay. That shouldn't count against it. You know, I've never heard a girl say, well, I can't deal with a guy that's had a high body count. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's just like, there are a lot of other factors, and there are a lot of other things I'm trying to build into my daughters. And I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm saying this, and people are gonna look at it that way. But I wouldn't want you within 5 miles of my daughters, bro. Mm-hmm. The way you talk.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nope.
Because to
Turn
me,
yourself around.
To me, like, I don't have anything personally against you. To me, that's just throwing up a bunch of red flags. To be quite honest with you, my daughters would look at what you said, and that would be the end of it. Mm-hmm. Like, they wouldn't even.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of attitude to me, is a massive, massive, massive red flag, and probably explains why you're in the situation that you're in. I'm just being real with you. You know, I don't know who you're following. Those guys on YouTube or whatever. People like us on YouTube are not. I don't know how to explain it. Like, we're not real people. We're not like. It's not what you're gonna get on the street. Mm-hmm. Okay, if it was, everybody would have that kind of a situation. So you're trying to compare yourself or emulate people who are doing something that only 1% of the entire population is even able to do. Mm-hmm. And then saying, if I don't get the same kind of treatment or success that they have, that means that, you know, and that's why we have to project that feeling of failure onto the women. Because we're comparing ourselves to people on YouTube who are ridiculously successful, that only 1% of the people in the world could be successful at. Mm-hmm. And we're saying, oh, if I'm not like these guys are the standards for masculinity, and they're the standards for being a, quote, alpha male, whatever. Everybody wants to be an alpha male. It's ridiculous. I was on a team of people. I was the youngest guy there, and they were the most elite dudes on the face of the earth, and I just followed what everybody said. Like, I wasn't no alpha male, nothing. I was in a group of like you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be a leader all the time. You don't have to be like the big guy all the time. Like, most of the time they were saving my ass from shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure they had nice things to say about me, like if they were here, but like, yo, chill. There's more than one way to be a man, and there's also more than one way to be a woman. But these guys, man, like, I can't. The whole term. I got to tell you, like, the whole ran through, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, I know. You're talking about somebody.
Okay, like that. Okay, you're asking me what your red flags are. One, the term ran through and body count. It reduces the girl's value to how many sexual partners she's had.
Yep.
That's a red flag for me. There's no conversation about her business acumen. There's no conversation I'm hearing about her flexibility in bad situations. I mean, we're in a crazy environment right now. People getting shot up every day in their school. You need somebody that's mentally strong that can weave around all that shit. Yeah. I depend on her heavily for my mental health issues and things of that nature. It's probably too much. Like, can I lean on this person? Does this person have anything for me spiritually? How are they as a partner? How are they as a teammate? I'm not hearing any of those things, bro. It's just, how many dudes did she have sex with? That, and to me, like, that's a major red flag. That tells me where the priorities are. That's all I'm saying. Like, right. I would want the people, the men that marry my daughters, I would want them to be able to list off 10, 15 things off the top of their head that they love, that are tangible about my daughters. You know what I'm saying? And I would want, you know, I've got a daughter that's writing a bunch of screenplays and shit like that. Like, that motherfucker's coming to me, talking to me, how many people did your daughter have sex with? Motherfucker. Mm-hmm. My daughter's an author. Like, I don't give a fuck what. Yeah. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem to me, bro. It's a problem. Joe to Go says, I walked out of church this week because my friend who convinced me to come back was really late. I was sitting next to an empty chair. This girl was asked if she would sit with us, and she towards me and said, hell no. So you bounced? That must have really hurt, Joe. That must have really hurt.
Wow.
Do you think a high body count indicates lack of commitment and or potential STDs? Well, you know, we had a family Bible study. We talked about relationships. We talked about STDs.
Yep, we did.
And my position is, if you love the girl, it doesn't matter. Because if I'm going to marry you, I'm marrying you for life. So it doesn't matter. It's not a factor. That shit is just not important to me.
Yeah, but TK, you said, I don't want to pay full price for something others got for free. That's how I look at it. Like, what you're making it sound like is that the entire purpose of a woman, in your opinion, is sex. That's why you're talking about even other people got it for free and now I have to pay for it. I mean, she's an entire woman and she has a lot more things.
I don't pay full price?
Yeah, as in put a ring
that
on
others
it?
Got for free?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? What
That's what I'm saying.
Are you picking up these girls in stores? Are they in an aisle where, oh shit, this guy got the discount? Man, that's why, hey, listen, bro, that's why you're in that situation. That's why you're by 100%. Yourself. And you know what? And I've said this to my own sons, you know, years ago. I said, I'm glad you're by. I told one of my sons one time, like, I said, if there's any girl within 5 yards of you, I would warn that broad with everything in my power to stay away from you. I was like, whoa. I said, you are not ready. You using language like this about people, you're not ready to be a husband, man. That's a child. That shit you say when you're in high school. That's shit I used to say when I was in high school. And I was a flaming hypocrite because we were going all over the place with these girls, bro. What the fuck? God help me be nice people. Listen, I don't know you. I don't have any personal animus towards you, but I'm telling you, that attitude is a reason that you're never going to be that you're by yourself right now. And for the sake of all the women around you, I'm happy. You're not ready. You don't deserve a woman yet, bro. To be honest with you.
And like, the thing is,
I'm not saying to disrespect you. You just don't deserve one. That's a powerful thing, man. To have a woman commit herself to you.
And human beings don't get sweeter with time without actually putting work into changing themselves. And I mean, if you stay on the trajectory that you're on, you'll find yourself very alone when you're older. Nobody's gonna stay when there's there's no 100%. Sex when you're after a certain age. There's illnesses, there's challenges, and you're not going to find somebody that's willing to give you that level of commitment when your main priority and focus is just about sex.
XBM in the house. Rig he's such an outside the box thinker. Look at this. The body count thing is wild because they think a woman after 20 dudes is worn out, used up, but a woman is okay if she's had sex with the same guy 20 times. Right. She's more likely to have more sex in a committed relationship than she would at the bar. I just don't believe that these girls have a 50-man body count. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. Maybe some of the girls on that podcast, but I don't believe that your average American girl has had 50 fucking sexual partners by the time she gets out of her 20s. Yeah. Ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The world you guys live in is insane. But that's such a good point. Like, yeah, so she was with the dude for, like, let's say 3 years. They've had hundreds of sexual encounters. So I guess that yeah. Shout out to Rig. Shout out to Rig. God almighty. God almighty. Hot Russian singles in your area. Love you guys. Straight up talk. Have you ever had to reinvent yourselves in a major way? And if so, did you start the process and overcome fear and doubt? Yeah. Yeah, I've had to reinvent myself a lot, actually. Trying to figure out what to say because I actually ended up I had a course on this and I had to do this through selection. So I don't know what to say. I actually literally had to take a course on this. Let me check. church trauma and depression. It's better to not go to church than to attend churches. I've had bad experiences out there. Other churches that just have old people, and I'm trying to meet women. I don't think the desire to meet women at church is necessarily a bad one.
Yeah, I don't either. It was just funny.
So I do think
I started a Bible study at my house to meet somebody.
Yeah, that's true. And then once you did, you were gone. That was it. That was the end of the Bible study. See you guys. You guys are burning hell now. Sorry, God. Reinventing yourself. Yeah. So I think the key to reinventing yourself is to realize that, I don't know how deep I want to get into this. When a person talks about, I want to be myself or whatever, most of us don't really truly know ourselves. Most of us have not looked ourselves in the mirror, really, especially in the modern age. You had a better shot of it, when people had candlelight instead of electricity. But when you have electricity, you're able to distract yourself a lot better, and you have to fight like mad to have self-reflection. Okay, so here's how this sets up that question. I moved a lot when I was a kid, and so some environments were down South Florida, Confederate flags. Other environments were Parsippany, New Jersey, which was basically suburbia, just generic suburbia. Other places were the straight up ghetto, Bronx, New York ghetto, Valentine Avenue, fucking Fordham Road, 175th, Grand Concourse. Like, that was ground zero. Dudes, everybody got guns. Everybody, Wow. Then there's Maine. Okay, and so here's Vin going in all of these different arenas. Am I putting on? Okay, so is there a Florida Vin and a no? But the advantage of that was to say, there's a part of me, there's a part of my being that can relate to the Southern mentality, the down home mentality, and the there is something romantic about the Dixie thing and yes ma'am, no ma'am, and all that shit.
Yeah.
So was I being fake when I did that? No, that was really me. I was really attracted to that aspect of it, and so I focus on that aspect of the thing. And then what I did was I formed people's outward perception of who Finn was based on saying, okay, I'm going to allow that aspect of my personality. And black people do this all the time, especially in a professional arena. In a professional arena, I mean, we have the white voice. We have the very few corporate black people that got to the places that I was able to get to by God's grace. We would talk about it.
Yeah, I bet.
And so, but forget about the racial element. The point is there are certain aspects of your being that you project to other people for survival, because you want to get someplace, or you want the girl to like you, or whatever. So when people talk about reinventing themselves, I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean that you take all of who you are and completely change into a different person? A lot of the times reinventing yourself is just simply saying, okay, I'm going to pull this version of myself back and let you see this aspect of my being. If you're authentic,
that's a less stressful way of looking at it.
Yeah, you can still be your authentic self. It's just like, look, if you were in another country, right, and people believe that you were a certain, one of them, when in reality you're an American, you're trying to get, whatever. You're not going to say, and somebody says something bad about Americans, you're not going to say, motherfucker, you're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Well, you could, or you'll die. Right. But so you shut down that aspect of who you are, and then you project to them, but you could still be genuine and say, well, why does this guy like him? Well, he doesn't like America because he feels America's oppressive. Well, I as a person, I don't like oppression either. Mm-hmm. I love America unconditionally. Yeah. And I'm going to live and die with America unconditionally. But can I relate to not liking oppression? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to show you that. That's not me being fake. A person could say that, like, oh, you're being fake. Like, look at that. But it's not. It's I'm gonna sacrifice one aspect of who I am. I don't think I'm not a believer in showing everybody who you are and what you are. Like, this is a big thing in the modern age. Like, wear your heart on your sleeve and don't let anybody doubt what you believe. Blah blah blah. It's like, it depends. There's some things where I'm like, there's gonna be no question as to what I believe, and there's other things that I'm gonna leave ambiguous. So, long story short, you won't have any problems reinventing yourself the more you know yourself. And the more you know of yourself, the more control you'll have as to what you bring to the fore and what you bring backwards. And as long as you can stay true to yourself with that way, you'll be in good shape, I think. America is categorically, factually, the most oppressive country on earth right now, Vin. You don't love America, you love the idea of America. Ben, I have been to certain countries that were practically so oppressive you almost couldn't breathe. And I have seen things in those situations that I don't have rose-colored glasses about America, especially as a black person in America. But there are some other countries with extreme oppression. So I don't think you can say categorically America is the most oppressive country in the world. But my love for America is unconditional. I don't love America because it's awesome. I just love America because this is where I am. These are my folks. These are my people. And it's always going to be that way. And so I understand where you're coming from, but I'm not saying I love America because America is better than everybody. I'm saying I love America because the people that I love are here. And to Nick's point, you cannot say that America is more repressive than North Korea. Now, full disclosure, I've never been to North Korea, but you cannot say that America is more oppressive than North Korea. I'm sorry. That's just not going to work. That's not going to work. I had a friend one time. He's a white dude. And he said, yeah, I didn't see color. I never saw color. He said, until I went to one of these all black churches. He said, then I understood color. Or the next time there's a big giant Jesus movie, by, MGM or one of these giant Hollywood studios. Let that Jesus be black and then tell me you don't see color. When you're in the majority in a privileged position, it's easy not to see color. I'll just say it that way. I never want to be in a country where people who criticize the government get disappeared. Agree. Yeah, I mean, okay, Ben. That's fine. That's fine, Ben. I mean, I get what you're saying. Trust me. Believe me, I do. But you cannot tell me that the fucking Soviet Union was less oppressive than the United States of America. I'm just not going to buy that. But like I said, I don't care. That doesn't mean that even if it was, I would still love America because I love America unconditionally. So it doesn't matter to me. All right, guys, 10 minutes. You actually broke down and brought him.
I missed him too much.
Oh my god.
I did. I left him for a while.
I'm not being an ass. Morgan Freeman said racism will be tamed when he is no longer referred to as a black man. That's the reason I brought it up. Yeah, I understand. A lot of white people love to quote Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is a multimillionaire, so he lives a certain kind of life.
Here's the little homie.
So I understand what Morgan Freeman said. I also understand why it appeals to certain kinds of people. But Morgan Freeman's experience is not the standard experience of people in America. So that's how I'd answer that question. Yeah. A lot of white people won't quote Malcolm. A lot of white folks are very selective about who they'll quote. They'll quote Martin.
But they don't quote Martin
Freeman.
from later on.
They won't quote later Martin.
No.
Yeah. Who said that his I Have a Dream speech, he said it's become a nightmare.
Yep.
They won't quote Martin where he said he fears that he's integrated his people into a burning house. They won't quote that. So, but look, I understand where you're coming from. I just differ a little bit from Mr. Freeman. Say hi to Uncle Kai, Seneca. We quote Chappelle. Look at this guy. All this guy does all day is eat. That's all he does, mashallah.
Yeah, what did you say? He's 2 months?
Yeah.
But he's like 3 months. The
Winston,
size of 3 months.
Winston, what do you need prayers for? We'll definitely pray for you. This Ben. That's a weird looking thing he says.
You know he's cute, Ben. Stop it.
I know. If we met Ben, that'd be the first thing. Like, there you go. Power to the baby. Power to the baby. This is 2:00. You should be asleep.
He's all sideways because he's sick.
Shout out to the Seneca tribes.
Oh, I smiled at you.
You smiled at your boy. You smiled at daddy. Oh, yeah, you're smiling. Oh, okay. You just spit up. Okay, that's it. Spitting at me. Don't hand that baby to me. That's how it ends up on the floor. You would not drop Seneca on the floor. You would protect Seneca with your life. Stop trying to be tough, Ben. Everybody's seen through your bullshit, bro.
We'd come in, he'd be like whispering, I'm Uncle Ben. I'm Uncle Ben.
We need prayers to the homie Pops that was murdered in New York a few days ago. Damn. Ugh.
That's sad.
Outsider perspective. The U.S. are not more or less oppressive than anything else. They're just more competent and make it smoother and more subtle. I 100% agree with that. We're absolutely good at making the oppression settle for sure. For sure. I wouldn't be Uncle Ben. We all saw Spider-Man. We know what happens to Uncle Ben. Yeah, but I'd make sure you were good, bro. You got me, you got Applejack, you got 275 and Ranger. You got some hitters. You got some hitters with you, bro. You got some hitters with you, Ben. You'd be all right. We won't let nothing happen to you. Please pray this week for my sanity and hunt for a Christian woman. I can't afford therapy. I might lose my apartment, so I may move into my parents'. Hey, listen, moving in with your parents is a reset. Mm-hmm. It's a reset. It's a reset. Yeah, Danny. Look, I'm not mad at you, bro. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying that I don't hold that philosophy, and I think when you've attained a certain level of status, it's easy to say certain things. That's all. I don't believe that. I'm not even going to open up that ball of wax. There's just certain things that black people are asked to do that other groups of people are not asked to do. That when those other people are asked to do, the whole world will explode. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. No shame in living with your parents. The idea that you're supposed to move out and be independent is uniquely American. Try having non-American friends. They all have multi-generational homes. Yeah, I was watching something like that about the whole... I mean, I disagree that, like, moving out and being independent is completely American. I mean, Genesis 2, right? For this reason, a father and mother... for this reason, a man leaves his father and mother to be bound to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. But that's not at a certain point when you're 18. It's a point when you're ready to get married and start your own family. So I agree to a degree, Ben, that that's the case. It's been a long... Okay,
I had a long battle with it as well.
Oh, you're talking about Winston?
Yeah.
That's what he wanted prayer for. It's been a long battle of infertility, and we're starting to sink low into depression. Yeah. Shariah went 7 years.
Yeah. But it was, a miscarriage had preceded the 7 years, so it intensified the pain of it. But yeah, it's a long while, and it's hard sometimes because you feel like it may never happen, and who knows what the plan of God is. But I remember battling the depression as well.
Yeah. I remember, because we weren't together at the time, but I was remembering her go through it and starting to see like people, because you guys, we were all kind of like in our 20s when everything first started, so everybody started getting pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's getting pregnant around you, and it wasn't happening for her, and it was difficult. I used to spend a lot. We were just talking about this last night. I spent a lot of time praying for her and her guy, so they could have But yeah, it was 7 years. It wasn't until we got together, and But you had family members that they went to the treatment. They spent thousands of dollars. I don't want to exaggerate.
No, it is. It's thousands of dollars.
They spent thousands of dollars on everything, and
it never happened for her. Never. But then, after they didn't do any more of those treatments, then all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 and then they had multiple kids. So sometimes I think like focusing on getting both of your bodies in the best shape of your life is important to get healthy, and then I know that it sounds like, I don't know, it's a difficult task, but not to be overly stressed out about it, because it seems like a lot of times people will say we adopted, and as soon as we adopted, then we got pregnant, so there's a lot of times stress is a factor as well. But yeah, definitely it's one that hurts, because it's such a pure desire, children, and to be able to 100%. Train them and teach them and have them, and so yeah. Yeah, XPM, it's true. Been scared away Sori's infertility and her sleep paralysis demons. It's true. Oh, my hero. Thanks, Kai. I don't know if I already told you this, but he was screaming one night, and I picked him up, and he was like looking around. He was just like screaming, and as soon as his eye caught your picture, he went, ah. And then just sat there looking at the picture. It was really cute.
Yeah. I was like, great. Good thing we had that Kai picture. Otherwise, we'd have been in a lot of trouble. What is my view of Mexico and its people? I think they're some of the most resilient people on the planet. Obviously, the way that they've been treated by our country over the last 15 to 20 years, really, since the beginning, is unforgivable in some respects, in my opinion. But they still find a way to find joy in life and all the rest of it. So viva Mexico, for show. Very rock and roll. Very rock and roll, for sure. Much love to Mexico. It's my belief that there is a greater morality, but Jesus is not my savior in any capacity. Yikes. I don't believe that one race has less opportunities due to skin color. I came from a broken home. I was a gang member as an addict, but I also chose to move on to better things. Well, that's good. I've made some good things in myself as well, but I also know that to pretend that there haven't been systems put in place. Like here's the thing for me, guys. Okay. If you have hundreds of years of one group of people benefiting financially and economically from the free labor of another group of people. And then on top of that, you add a legal system that was at some level invented to go after that specific group of people.
Yep.
And then you have a banking system called redlining that is, again, set up to disadvantage that group of people, where you have black taxpayers paying into the pot, and then all the home loans going to Caucasians. To say now in 2022 that all those previous hundreds of years of inequality are somehow now flattened out and equal doesn't even make logical sense to me. It doesn't even make mathematical sense. I don't need to. It's just logic. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you are condemned to be a loser if you're a person of color in this country? No, you can overcome shit, but look, there's a reason Barry Bonds is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And the reason is that he took PEDs that gave him an unearned advantage over his peers. And so, does that mean that every pitcher that threw the ball, that's like saying, well, Barry Bonds, his steroid use had nothing to do with anything because I was able to strike him out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
I mean, so look, I'm somebody who I've done okay. I've made a little bit of a success of myself, but I'm not going to go and abandon my people and then pretend like I haven't gone. I mean, I was just in a situation last week where if I wasn't there, that kid absolutely would have ended up in handcuffs in a cruiser. Absolutely. And the person who called the police on him knew exactly what he was doing. So these are the things that are happening on the ground. This is the shit that I see.
Yep.
I'm not going to look at that kid and say, hey man, hey, I understand what happened, blah, 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 but you should be like me. I'm not going to do that. I don't know where that kid came from. I don't know what his background is. I don't know what his capabilities are. I just know that if I wasn't there, best case scenario, he'd have been in a cruiser. Worst case scenario, he could have ended up dead. And the people that called the police on him knew exactly what the fuck they were doing.
It was crazy because when you told me the story, it reminded me, when you'd see those old-fashioned videos where they were trying to show you, that slavery was happening, it wasn't right, or, the apps all out. And there's, whiskey all over the back of the whole wall, you know what I mean? They're obviously not all out.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll take this. We're all out. And, that was exactly what they did in that situation.
Yeah.
Clearly they weren't all out of what they were saying they were. But
see, here's Devin not understanding what I'm saying. Devin, I'm not saying that Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame because he's black. What I'm saying is he's not in the Hall of Fame because his PED use gave him an unfair advantage. And what I'm saying is, based on just plain math and history, white people start with an advantage that black people do not have. That is a fact. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Not only slavery, but that set the foundation, but Jim Crow, redlining, systemic attacks by the police, etc., etc., etc. We're not starting in the same playing field. That does not mean that no pitcher could strike out Barry Bonds. There were pitchers that struck out Barry Bonds. But for a pitcher to say, hey, I struck out Barry Bonds, so that means his PED use had nothing to do with his performance and all of us are on an equal plane, is logically... The point is, Lance Armstrong, again, same thing. Nobody's saying that Lance Armstrong didn't work his ass off. Lance Armstrong absolutely worked his ass off. He practiced harder than anybody. He was also doing blood doping, which gave him an unearned advantage. So what we're talking about in this discussion relative to the opportunities people get is there's a group of people in America that have an unearned advantage over another group of people. That's what we're saying. And I'm not saying that those unearned advantages cannot be overcome. I'm not saying that there are not outliers like myself who've overcome those things or my brother who's overcome those things. What I'm saying is to pretend that there is no advantage just doesn't... I don't even understand what the motivation is. Why would a person even pretend about that? Mm-hmm. There's ways to deal with that. That's all I'm saying. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a pitcher that you get to say, Barry Bonds is juicing, so I'm not going to throw that 90 mile an hour. You better throw that fastball as hard as you can. You better throw that fastball harder when you're when you're going up against Barry Bonds. And that's a situation that black people find themselves in the world of America, in the corporate world. She was able to see it firsthand because I was working from home, the way that my black employees were treated by corporate America. So, and right now those girls, they're doing great, but that's because I was there, and I made a point to hire them and put them in powerful positions. But if I didn't, they'd still be doing menial work right now.
Yep,
that's just a fact. So. Yeah, I didn't interview anybody. I didn't do anything. I said, you and you.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I didn't interview nobody. Yeah, hell yeah. Nah. I said, you and you. That was it. Let's go. We're going to make some money. Yeah, that was it. But if I didn't do that for them girls, they'd still be doing whatever right now. Early UFC when everyone was on steroids was the best. Yeah, early UFC was crazy. That was like the closest thing to Vale Tudo. 10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes. Early UFC was crazy. No, I didn't do any interviews for appearances. Hell no. I got my folks lined up. I made sure they were straight. And then I bounced. I made sure my folks were good. I set up my entire Pan-African board up there in that bitch. I made sure my folks were good. Then I pieced out on everybody. Hell no, I wasn't doing shit for appearances.
But they were good workers, too.
Of course they were good workers. I'm going to justify that shit to nobody, bro. I mean, Shorty's she's a director now. She's out there flying all over the place doing all types of good shit in the world. Yeah, okay. I don't need to justify that to anybody. I'd have done that shit again. I'd make a course on how to do that shit. What you on? I appreciate it. You made sure they were straight, not gay. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, our equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. I think on a real practical level, Diaz, nobody, even the people that say there should be equality of outcome, nobody really believes that shit, bro. Even like when you're playing video games, nobody believes there should be equality of outcome. Like, come on, stop it. Anybody who says we should have equality of outcome for everybody is insane. Because we all know, like, you know, unless, you know, I mean, you guys know when they made you do the little group projects at school and you ended up being the smart guy, you always knew that there was some slacker out there that was just going to sit there and let you do all their work for them and then inherit your awesome grade. You didn't think that shit was fair. Nobody believes in equality of outcome in the real world, bro. I certainly don't. How does filicide save my soul? And why does God need 3 visits to fix the mess he created? Why can't he get it right? Well, if you're talking about filicide relative to the death of Christ, how does it save your soul? Well, it saves your soul in a multitude of ways. Number 1, your soul needs saving from itself. Some of the cruelest people in the world are ourselves to ourselves. That's number 1. Sin is not presented as like, oh, you broke the rules and so God has to smack your hand forever in hell. Sin is presented as a contagion, kind of similar to a zombie infection. You know, where where a person is completely and totally subsumed by something that completely and totally changes their nature into something that's a shadow of what they could be or what they once were. That's how sin is. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the concept of sin. People look at it like rule breaking, and obviously it's manifested in the violation of commandments. But in reality, sin is a principle. It's a virus from a biblical perspective that robs us progressively of all that we could and should be. And so the zombie metaphor is massively important. So number one, you need to be saved from yourself and from your own sin and from your destructive patterns and addictions like all the rest of us. But number two, the reason Jesus' death was necessary is because we have things like Holocausts where people took image bearers of God. And I don't care what you think the number was. I don't care if it's 2 million, 6 million. I don't care. You took a bunch of image bearers of God and systemically destroyed them. And then on top of that, you experimented on them. I'm talking about the human family now. We've got 61 million babies that we've killed in abortion. We've got the transatlantic slave trade. We've got all the drug dealing and shit that happens in the ghetto. We've got people in Africa selling other Africans to white people and Spaniards and Arabs in the transatlantic slave trade. Yeah, that happened. You got black people killing each other in record numbers in Chicago and then making music about it and bragging about it. So can God forgive somebody like a King Von who's killed 7 people at least and bragged about it? Well, of course God can forgive King Von for doing that, but he can't just willy-nilly say, yeah, man, I forgive you, because what about those 7 families that you destroyed, bro?
Right.
What about all those people in the ovens at Bergen-Belsen? What about all those babies that are that are now being called medical waste? Oh. Can God forgive the doctor that did that to that baby? Well, of course he could, but when I see a crucified Jesus, I see God saying, that was fucking real what you did to those people, bro. You hurt people. We hurt each other. And God can't just willy-nilly just say, yeah, I forgive you. And then act as if what happened to those babies didn't mean anything. And act as if what happened to those people, what happened to Anne Frank and her family didn't mean anything. You had entire fucking forests of family trees just completely cut down in a very, very short period of time. God can't just willy-nilly hand out forgiveness to those German people. So when I see a crucified Jesus, I say, that's what your sin looks like, bro. Yeah, I can forgive you, but you got to understand what the fuck actually happened here. That's what God is saying. So that's how filicide... and I'm glad that you use that term, and I'm not shying away from it, because the scripture says that God the Father crushed Jesus. And the same word that's used for Judas's betrayal of Christ is literally the same word that is used for God the Father when it says, he who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all. That the Greek word for gave him up is literally the same word as betrayal when it's applied to Judas. So, I'm not going to shy away from the filicide thing. God killed his son to save your soul because otherwise you're a zombie. And B, because I've hurt people and you've hurt people. And if he just willy-nilly forgives us without showing a real price and cost for it, then we're dishonoring all those people that we've harmed. And by the way, I fully expect to worship next to a bunch of KKK, ex-KKKers and ex-Naziers in the kingdom. I fully expect to worship next to those people. But I also know that their forgiveness wasn't cheap, that God valued me so much that he said, if I'm going to forgive you for the shit that you did to this guy's ancestors, I'm going to sacrifice the most important thing in the world to me in order to forgive you, because that's how valuable those people were that you hurt. So because of that, I can reconcile myself to worshiping next to an ex-KKKer. Other than that, I don't have any explanation on how you can forgive people on the macro level. And that's one of the issues we have in our society today, is that we've got a completely unforgiving society. You said some crazy shit 10 years ago, you're out.
Yeah.
You were part of some bad group 10 years ago, you're out. Because you guys
can't change.
There's no cross. It's fascinating. That's one of the things that's fascinating to me about left-wing secularists that I did not know about is how judgmental. They're just as judgmental and unforgiving as the evangelicals I grew up with. It's just the different people that are being judged. So that's my answer to that question. Yeah, you get canceled. You get canceled because we have no forgiveness, because secularism has no cross, so there's no way to atone for anything. There's no atonement. Okay? So that's what secularists are trying to figure out. They're trying to say, how do we keep you in society and at the same time acknowledge that these people are valuable that you're harming?
Yeah.
And because they have no cross, the only thing they can do is cancel you. So, look, if you could take out a cross if you want, but I'm going to keep it because I've done a lot of shit that I can't reverse, man. I've done a lot of shit I can't reverse, so I'm going to hang on to that cross. A lot of you people are better people than me, and I mean that. A lot of you guys don't even have the capacity to do the evil shit that I've done. But like me, I need that shit daily. Daily. Religion has spilled more blood than anything in history. That's a complete lie. I'm sorry, Danny. That's a complete lie. World War I and World War II had more bodies in it than all the other previous wars in human history combined times 50. And neither one of those wars were about religion. And then the communists, after that, massacred tens of millions of people in the name of secularized state atheism. So that's just not true. I have a question for the atheists. If you don't believe in God, why do you try so hard to disprove his existence? Are we not following the example set by God when we enact cruelty on our fellow man? No, because God tells you to love your neighbor as yourself. And if you're talking about the God of the Bible, from a biblical perspective, the God of the Bible to this moment is keeping people alive who hate him. The very breath that people use to blaspheme God is given by the God of the Bible every moment. Existence is not a given in a biblical worldview. Existence is something that needs to be sustained in a biblical worldview. So the tree that Jesus was crucified on was created by Christ and maintained by Christ. The nails that held Jesus in place were created and maintained by Christ. And the people that were nailing him to said tree were also maintained by Christ and dependent on him for their existence as they were nailing him to the cross. So when you talk about God's cruelty, I'm sorry, bro, but God is gregarious almost to a fault when he's dealing with human beings. Do you think the Old Testament sacraments were merely symbols, or did the Old Testament sacraments confer positive elements of grace? I think that they're both true if they were looking forward to the seed that was to come in Genesis 3:15. I think you can, Sailhamer's book, The Message of the Pentateuch, where he presents the case that there was an explicit messianic expectation woven into the Old Testament. And then you have the New Testament where Jesus says, Abraham saw my day and he was glad. And then you have Moses and Elijah meeting with Jesus in the Mount of Transfiguration. And it specifically says when they were discussing the Exodus that he was about to bring about in Jerusalem. And so I would say, to the degree that the Old Testament believer said, I don't know how this is going to work, but you say this is going to work and somebody's going to come to fix it all, so here we go. I think it was effectual. Good question, though. Capitalism killed more things than anything in history. I will die on that hill. Correct. The whole religion killed everybody thing, I think, is something you could say before World War I. But after World War I and II, man, forget about it. You just can't. I can't believe people are still saying, like, no disrespect, but I can't believe people are still saying that. Daniel Montgomery in the house. Do you think consecrated communion wafers could be the body of Christ, or is that too far for you? If you're asking if I believe in transubstantiation, where it becomes the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, I do not believe. You know what? Let me take a rain check on that.
Oh boy. I was kind of wondering what you were gonna say.
Let me take a rain check on that, Danny. I'm not sure. If this is a case, evil is not something intrinsic to humans, necessarily something we should answer for, except on a personal basis, perhaps. But evil is something that was baked into the plan by God. Well, I don't. What do you mean by if this is the case? If what's the case? Let me see what Cat and Cabbage is saying. That's an interesting name too, Cat and Cabbage.
Babe, if I put him to bed and get some tea, do you want any?
Get some what?
Tea.
Yeah, I'd like some tea. All things good and evil exist solely by God's allowance. I agree. If this is a case, evil is not something intrinsic to humans. Well, I don't believe that evil is native to human nature relative to how we were created. Evil is the absence of something. I had this conversation with my buddy A.T. I don't believe that evil has an actual ontology or existence in the world. Evil is simply the absence of something. So, I don't believe that darkness has actual ontology. It's simply the absence of light. So evil, I don't believe, has its own ontology. It's simply the absence of good. And since good is a divine attribute, like power or knowledge, etc., that would answer that question. Personally, I think transubstantiation, at least properly articulated in the Thomistic view, honestly, isn't different from the Reformed view of real spiritual presence or Lutheran sacramental union. I'm having a hard time with the Calvinists' understanding of like the real presence, you know what I'm saying? Or like present in mystery, I forgot how the guy said it. Versus, I mean, the Catholics are very, very specific: body, blood, soul, and divinity. It literally is the body of Christ, literally is the blood of Christ, I think. But I do think something is happening in communion, properly administered, that goes beyond just a memorial. I don't even like the idea of we're just looking back, because I've had many, many powerful communion experiences with a body of believers in some really gritty, grimy places that were very powerful, and Christ was present in a particular way during communion that he is not in other circumstances. It's just, so I don't know how to parse it exactly. That's why I was gonna give you the standard Protestant answer, Daniel, and then I backed out of it because I don't want to pretend that I have a position that I don't have. Feel like an absence of grace would just be indifference. Evil is going out of your way to harm people. I don't believe that there's any neutrality. I also don't believe has any ontology in the world. And so if you're not graced, then you're evil. That's my view. Can you explain this to me? Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. That was Jesus of Nazareth that said that, dear listener. I think the answer to that question, Applejack, is I think probably found in the verses that follow right after that. So let's see if we could look at it and see if we can't figure something out. Because I mean, I hear you. It's like how do you reconcile, gentle Jesus with Matthew chapter 10? And I see it come up a lot, and it's got to be dealt with. Okay, so let's see if we can't figure out what Jesus is talking about. Maybe we could read some of the before as well, and the after. Maybe that'll give us some clarity. All right, so here we go. Challenging verses for sure for Christians. Let's see if we can figure some shit out here. Okay, so if you go up here, he first starts off by saying, "Don't be afraid of those who can kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Instead, fear the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." SubhanAllah. It's one of my favorite verses of all time because it's so simple. Don't be afraid. We're worth more than many sparrows. So in that passage, Jesus is saying, don't be afraid of anyone. Why? Therefore, everyone who confesses me before men, I will also confess him before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I will also deny him before my Father in heaven. Which is one of the reasons I'm on Team Jesus, and I don't care what anybody says, because I'm not afraid of nobody. If you have the right fear of God, you fear no man. But if you don't fear God, you fear every man. So this passage up here is telling us what happens. Why Christians, especially in the first century, would be hesitant to come out of the closet, as it were, with their confession of faith in Jesus. The reason is because they could die. Verse 28. People would want to kill them, and we saw that happen, especially in the first 3 centuries of the church. And so Jesus is encouraging them. I get it; it's scary, but you gotta stand up for what's right. Then it talks about verse 32, coming out of the closet with an open confession of your belief in Christ. Then in the next verse, it says, "Do not assume that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come," and here it is, "to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother-in-law, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be members of his own household. And anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." So the context there of not peace but a sword is not, notice the violence is only happening to the Christians, right? Verse 28, the violence was happening to the Christians. The killing, the actual literal killing, was happening to the Christians in verse 28. And then at the end here, he doesn't say, deny yourself, take up your sword and follow me. He actually says, take up your cross and follow me. So here when he talks about not peace but a sword, he's not talking about a literal sword, obviously, because it's sandwiched between believers being killed. What he's saying is, coming out of the closet and being explicitly Christian is going to have a divisive effect in your family. It's going to have it's the sword of division, right? And Jesus is telling people, people are going to turn on you. If you live a certain kind of lifestyle, people are happy with you. And then now you start living for Christ and you start talking about Christ, they're going to start calling you a preacher. Once you start saying, I don't really think we should be doing this for the sake of Christ. Christ is the main reason I'm against abortion. The scripture says that God is in the womb, forming us together in our mother's womb. So there's Jesus forming a baby together in his mother's womb, and then here comes some doctor impeding into that holy moment and tearing the child to shreds. The number one reason I advocate against abortion is for Jesus' sake. But the point is, people will turn on you when you become a Christian. And I'm not talking about like a culturally acceptable Christian. I'm talking about a Christian that comes out and says what the scripture says about any given topic. People will turn on you. And Jesus is saying, look guys, read the fine print. Read the fine print. People in your own family will turn on you. People that you thought were like down for you, people that you thought were like right there with you, they will flip on you. They will turn on you. They will abandon you. And I've seen it happen. I've been blessed to be around a lot of new Christians when they first meet Jesus, and they get very, very excited and they start posting shit on Facebook, all the rest of it, and they're shocked when they see how their family members react to them and treat them after that. So, Jesus was saying that so that people wouldn't be shocked. Are you against the use of drugs while pregnant? I mean, if the doctor's evil for messing with the growth, certainly you should go after smokers and drinkers too. Well, I'm against anything that's gonna materially affect a child in a horrible way. Obviously, when Sarai was pregnant, she had a slight case of hyperemesis, and so there were all these pills that they were, prescribing for her, which are obviously drugs. And so there was a little bit of struggle with how is this going to affect the baby, and trying to balance out making sure that she was good, because hyperemesis it's not morning sickness, man. It's like you want to die type sickness, and she was dealing with that for months and months and months without relief. And so I look at that stuff, and you do as much research as possible. Yeah, no doubt, Applejack. No doubt, Applejack. This makes me miss boogies. Yes, the Bible boogies are coming back, my guy. Don't worry. I know I've been saying that for a year, but maybe that was one of my New Year's resolutions. Maybe. You can never tell, though. Jesus is a Muslim. He submitted to God. MashaAllah. Warith Wahid. If you mean by Muslim one who submits to Allah, then absolutely. But if you mean by Muslim one who follows Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the last and final prophet, then obviously he was not. Jesus is not the prophet of God, next to Muhammad. Jesus preached that he will be judging Muhammad on Yom Al Qiyamah. So much love to you, my brother, but that's how I'd answer that. "20 minutes ago, Vin called 10 minutes. The dumbass can't even count to 10. Oh, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. I think you're right. Do you think Danny Phil, someone who is well read on the Bible, can make it in? Absolutely. I think if I can make it, anybody can make it. I'm gonna go. I would go and bet good money that Danny Filth hasn't done half the shit that I have done as far as evil around the world. So, yes, Danny, and I actually have a lot of hope for Danny Filth and Nergal from Behemoth. They know a lot of Bible. The last song that we reviewed from Cradle of Filth was almost kind of Danny Filth looking back at his life and asking for forgiveness. Same thing with Marilyn Manson, whatever. I'm extremely optimistic about all of us. God did not make us to destroy us. He's gonna find some excuse, some way, to bring us all in. You're gonna have to fight, kicking and screaming to end up in the other place. That's what I believe. And when you're young and when you have a lot of money, you feel a certain way. But after a while, you can reflect on your life. You start going, holy shit, I actually do need a savior. Why would Danny want to make in? Bible Boogie? Bible, is that your new Christian disco project or a Christian sneeze? Bible Boogies were, it was me, Kai, and a couple other people. We had these super secret meetings where we would spend a couple hours a day just going over Bible passages or Bible topics, controversial issues or things that we thought about or whatever. So that's what the Bible Boogies were. Vin, how do you view the Audrey and Fern ideal of possession? The idea that an evil entity can be forced and bound on someone through trauma is weird to me. Yeah, you're talking about Michael Heiser's people? I am not sure. I had the same questions, and I'm glad you asked it, because you and 4 other people on the planet even know what we're talking about. But I'm not sure. I am troubled. With that idea that trauma, like, you were molested at 4 years old, and because of that, some entity or principality now has jurisdiction over it. It kind of looks like almost like a double victimization on a person that didn't. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of have like a justice issue with that concept. So yeah, I'm not sure. How do you interpret Isaiah 45:7? Do you interpret the word evil in this verse as calamity and suffering? Ra, the Hebrew word ra. Look, 8 chapters later, right? 8 chapters later, it talks about the suffering of Christ. And the suffering of Christ in Isaiah 53, it starts Isaiah 52:13, right? It says, that he was, behold, my servant shall act wisely, he shall be high and lifted up, born beyond the sons of man. So Isaiah 52:13 introduces this guy that's like beaten beyond recognition. And then it says, as you read into Isaiah 52, into 53, it says, it pleased the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. So Isaiah says this guy is beat beyond human recognition. And then later on in the chapters, it says that God did that to him ultimately. And obviously the apostles agree with that. Acts chapter 4, I think it says, where Peter does that prayer, right? He says, truly in this city they gathered against your holy servant Jesus, Herod, Pontius Pilate, and the Jews, and they did to him everything that your will and your power determined beforehand should happen. So what happened to Christ was human evil. It wasn't an earthquake. It was actual human evil with actual human agents who actually get held accountable. Pilate gets held accountable. The Jews get held accountable. The Romans get held accountable. But simultaneous to that, it says they did everything your will and hand determined beforehand should happen. So that's how I would answer that question relative to Isaiah 45:7. Isaiah 42. Who's he referring to? Answer, Prophet Muhammad. La. Astaghfirullah. No, he was not referring to Muhammad in Isaiah 42. That's untrue. What's up, Punxsutawney Phil? Vin, was there a reason that after God sent the plagues to Egypt in order to compel them to let the Hebrews go, that once gave Moses the 10 commandments, there was no commandment about slavery? That's because if you look at Exodus 21, prior to the 10 commandments, we have the 10 commandments as sort of like, these are like the real 10. But there's about, between Exodus and Deuteronomy, about, I wish Perkinos is here, about 7 lists of commandments that make up the entire legislative code in Old Testament Israel. There's ultimately 613, as they say, mitzvot. And so there was already a commandment relative to the slavery that we found in the transatlantic slave trade in Exodus chapter 21. It says, here's the command, and this commandment was actually given prior to the 10 commandments, actually. This is prior to them ending up at Sinai. Actually, let me make sure I'm right. Sinai was Exodus 20, right? You there? Sinai, Exodus 20?
I think it is, actually.
Okay, so I'm on crack.
Where is it?
Yeah. Sinai was Exodus 20. Okay, so Exodus 21, right after, so the very next chapter. Okay, so I'm gonna put that up for you guys, because there actually was an injunction against slavery relative to the transatlantic type of slavery that we're talking about. Here we go. Well, They don't want you to copy and paste it. They actually want to see it. Okay, here you go.
20, what verse?
So Exodus 21:16. Whoever kidnaps another man must be put to death. Whoever sells him or the man that is found in his possession. So if you steal a man from his, if you steal a man, you kidnap somebody, you get to put to death. And if you sell him, if you sell the person, if you kidnap the person, you get put to death. If you sell the kidnapped person, you get put to death. And if you are found in possession, as in you bought the kidnapped person, you also get put to death. So when you had the abolitionists, and we covered this in our channel actually, you had abolitionists and they were all against the transatlantic slave trade. People were like, why were all these Christians against the transatlantic slave trade? Exodus 21 made it absolutely clear that if you were a man stealer, is what they called it in the KJV parlance, you got executed. You got the death penalty. The vast majority of what you call slavery in the Old Testament is an employee-employer relationship. You got yourself in debt, your farm didn't work out, your sheep weren't having any kids, and you'd go to this person, you'd say, I will work for you, pay off this debt here, I will work for you. So it's an employee-employee relationship, etc., etc. And if you look at the way that employees are treated today, particularly if you really look at Marxism, Marxism rightly pointed out that many times the employee is still the slave of the employer. And so what you're looking at in Old Testament slavery is the same thing that Marx was looking at. You're not looking at transatlantic type slave trade. That type of slavery was you got the death penalty for, which was a lot of the explanation for why the Civil War cost us 600,000 people is because the pastors at the time were like, look, we were wrong, we knew we were wrong, we're supposed to get the death penalty, and this is what God did to us. So that's how I'd look at it. And of course, when Paul tells the slaves to be obedient to their masters, that is Paul maintaining Christ's injunction against violence. Because if Paul said, man, fuck your master, do whatever the fuck you want, don't let that dude do that to you, then one of two things is going to happen. That master was going to kill you. He's going to beat you to within an inch of your life. Remember, this is Rome. This is paterfamilia. The head of the household was essentially God in that environment. So he could kill you, he could rape you, he could do whatever he wanted. And so when Paul says be obedient to your master, he's not saying that slavery is an awesome institution. What he's saying is, I don't want you guys to die. Or B, the other alternative was that you would fight back and join one of these Spartan slave revolts, which goes completely contrary to Jesus' injunction against violence. Paul did say in 1 Corinthians 7, you and I got a lot of people that always talk about that passage, slave be obedient to your masters, as if that's all that Paul said about slavery. Here you go, dear listener. Here's 1 Corinthians 7. And this is obviously a passage that the slave owners did not want their their constituents to know for obvious reasons, which I'm sure you'll see in a second. Here you go. Each one should remain in the situation he wasn't when he was called. Were you a slave when you were called? Do not let it concern you. Then he says, but if you can gain your freedom, take the opportunity. For he who was a slave when he was called by the Lord is the Lord's freedman, and conversely, he who was free when he was called is Christ's slaves. You were bought at a price. Do not become slaves of men. So right there, Paul is saying, don't worry too much if you're a slave. Submit to him. Do whatever. I don't want you joining in any of these revolutions, but you could manumit yourself. You could buy yourself out of slavery. And Paul says, if it's possible to do that in a non-violent way, then free yourself. Then do it. And then he says, and don't let yourself become enslaved again. He said, you were bought with a price. Don't become slaves of men. If we're going to talk about the Bible and slavery, let's talk about all of what it talks about. Clearly there, in Exodus 21, the type of slavery that happened to my folks, God said we should kill people that do that. In the New Testament, Paul says, I don't want you guys joining these radical slave revolts and being violent because Christ's mission is non-violent. But if you can manumit yourself and you can get yourself freedom else, do that shit. So there you go. I'm wondering why the practice of slavery was never called out as wrong. Okay, all right. Okay, so Cat and Cabbage is wondering why the practice of slavery was never called out as wrong. Never? Okay. Let's see, Cat and Cabbage. Let's see. Because Cat and Cabbage is saying things that a lot of people say because they're not familiar with the scripture, and that's okay. That's completely okay. Now we know that the law is good. This is a New Testament, dear listener. If one uses it lawfully, understanding this, that the law is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and the disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners. Notice how he's describing these people. These are lawless, disobedient, ungodly, sinful people. For the unholy and profane. For those who strike their mothers and fathers. For murderers. For the sexually immoral. Men who practice homosexuality. Enslavers. Liars, perjurers, and whatever is contrary to sound doctrine. So, Cat and Cabbage, you'll be glad to know that the scripture actually does say that people who practice slavery are ungodly, disobedient, unholy, profane, and equivalent to murderers. So, now you know that the New Testament, the Bible absolutely condemns slavery. What translation is this? My brother, it doesn't matter what translation it is. That is 1 Timothy chapter 1, specifically verse 10. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 10. So, there you go. Furthermore, here's Revelation 18. In Revelation 18, there's this community of people called Babylon the Great. And Babylon the Great, doesn't matter what interpretation or translation, everybody agrees that Babylon the Great in the book of Revelation, they are the bad guys. They're the bad guys. Okay? Okay. So, how are the bad guys at the end of the scripture characterized? Well, one, they're characterized as kind of capitalistic. I'm not going to lie to you. Notice here, God destroys Babylon the Great because they're evil, fucked up people. Listen to what he says. The merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her since no one buys their cargo anymore. There's the capitalist impulses of Babylon. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet, cloth of all kinds, scented wood, all kinds of articles of ivory, all kinds of article of costly wood, bronze, and iron and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, chariots, and slaves. That is human souls. So when in the last book of the Bible, the last word we heard about slavery is that Babylon the Great practices it, and that God is ultimately and completely going to destroy Babylon the Great because she traffics in human souls as if they were property. So this idea that the Bible's cool with slavery, with the transatlantic slave trade, and it never says anything negative about slavery is just simply untrue. As I said, the vast majority of OT slavery was debt slavery. There are exceptions with certain groups of people who were held as slaves as a punishment for their sin. And if you get out of the Torah and you get into sort of the middle of the timeline, even those people, that's all gone. Okay? And when you're talking about taking a person from one group of people and then forcing them into labor for another group of people and racializing them, God says anybody who does that, execute them, kill them. So it is what it is. But what's fascinating to me is there are different kinds of slavery. There is transatlantic type slavery, but there is also the slavery that we're dealing with today, where we have people in debt slavery and they never get forgiven their debts. Do you realize, Kat, and the rest of you, that you would be in a much better situation economically in an Old Testament situation than now? Do you realize that? You couldn't even charge interest on a citizen. You got this whole Joe Biden situation with the student debt forgiveness. This would have been a non-issue in the Old Testament. You would have had a better time with student debt forgiveness in the Old Testament than you would in the United States of America. The irony here for my leftist friends and people that, don't like right-wing Christians, is you could have marshaled the Old Testament slavery codes, actually, to argue for student debt forgiveness. You had the year of Jubilee where you could cancel all your debts and you were no longer a slave to that person anymore. So, there you go. Interesting. According to the Bible, debts are to be given every 7 years. Correct. I have no issue with the notion that Peter could have used the secretary doubt over New T authorship. Simply assumes that the fathers were lying. Yeah, nobody disagrees that Peter used an amanuensis. The type of Greek that is in the Petrine corpus is obviously was obviously done by a professional. In Romans, at the end of Romans, was it Tychicus, whatever the guy's name is explicitly stated. Paul says, Tychicus, who wrote this letter, greets you. This is not new to us. It's right there. It's right there. No, it's not conjecture. It's not conjecture. We know what slavery was like in the ancient Near East. We also know, secondly, what I explained to you, Cat and Cabbage, was specifically about slavery as it is reflected in the scripture. That wasn't speculation. I was quoting the verses to you. You came and said, why was there never a rounding condemnation of slavery in the Bible? And I showed you 3 places where slavery was roundly condemned, and 2 of those 3, actually, all 3 of those places recommend death for all those people. So, I understand. I know where that question comes from. I understand the gotcha, whatever. But I'm sorry. As I said, most Americans die at about $20,000 in debt. You'd be better served in an Old Testament economic system than what we have here, my brother. No disrespect. No disrespect. Agree, Cat and Cabbage, and that's the reason why Paul says don't become a slave of anybody. That's why he says if you can non-violently get yourself out of slavery, do it. We agree. One of the jobs, the main job of the Messiah was to proclaim liberty to the captives. Okay? There's a reason. You got all these silly people who don't know history that say, Christianity was enforced on these African people, not realizing that Africans brought Christianity to Europeans. But that's a different story. But there's a reason that the slaves started creating Negro spirituals. And there's a reason that in the first century, Christianity was most popular among 2 groups of people in the Roman world, slaves and soldiers. There's a reason for that. Because baked right into the Christian worldview was the obvious destruction of slavery in the first place. For example, I just said that the vast majority of the slavery you said in the Old Testament was debt slavery. What did Jesus say about debts? Give to people without asking anything in return. If you federalize that as a concept, you would literally eliminate 90% of the slavery in the world. And I'm not just I'm talking about the American debt slavery that we're all find ourselves in right now. Okay? So the very all of the points that lead to freedom and the abolition of slavery. As I said, Cat and Cabbage, God bless you, man. But I'm sorry. When my folks were getting lined up and sold in ships and all the rest of it, it wasn't atheist secularists who were fighting like mad to free us. It was atheist secularists and stuff who came up with scientific racism that said that we were closer to apes than humans. It was Christians like John Brown, and it was the Quakers and all those other folks who were completely entrenched in their Bible that were writing songs and saying we need to abolish the slave trade and people need to die over this shit. It was Christians doing that. The secularists weren't doing that. There's a reason for that. See, there's what a passage says, okay? There's what a book says. There's what a philosophy says. And then there's, let me see how that gets worked out in historical practice. And in historical practice, slavery is the norm across the board. Slavery is one of the things that we see across the board in every society. What we don't see is a group of people who are benefiting from slavery fighting like mad to end it. And I'm sorry, that was almost exclusively Christian. Not only in America, but also overseas. And a bunch of white folks fighting like mad, willing to die to free slaves because of their theological predilections against it from the scripture. Deal with that. Secularism does not get me out of slavery, brother, because you can't tell me that I'm an image bearer of God. I'm an accident of stardust, like bumping into each other. So you don't even have a philosophical grounding for saying that slavery is wrong. And when you add peer-reviewed scientists who were saying that I was not human, they were experimenting on us. That didn't start in concentration camp. They were experimenting on us. Because we were sort of like this middle ground between apes and humans. So we don't need to talk about slavery and racism here. Listen, slavery and racism is not home court for secularists. It's not. And if the North would have lost the war, to this day, y'all would have been saying that I was subhuman and all the rest of it. Those are just facts. Sorry. You could say what you want. You could say what you want about Christianity not being concerned with slavery, cat and cabbage, but that doesn't explain the Civil War and the abolitionist movement that happened in the Western world. The Arab world and the Muslim world is still practicing slavery. You saw what happened as soon as Barack Hussein Obama and them boys liberated Libya with Al-Qaeda. What happened? They immediately reopened the Libyan slave markets. When ISIS and the rest of those boys took over Syria and Iraq, they immediately opened slave markets, including slave markets of Yazidi women. So, Christianity is the only hope to end slavery in the world. I'm sorry. We're the only worldview that is consistent with itself and is explicitly gone on the offensive with slavery. You're not going to find it in Islam, and you're not going to find it grounding in secularism. You can get some watered down secular humanism that has no basis for objective ultimate human value, which is really just Christianity without Jesus. But that's still Christianity. So shout out to all you beautiful people. Shout out to all you beautiful people. Wahid, you and I both know that your prophet owned slaves until the day that he died. Bilal was a slave. And that's why after Rasulullah died, he went to Abu Bakr al-Siddiq and said, Ya Abu Bakr, if you bought me for yourself, then keep me. If you bought me for Allah, then release me. So poor old Bilal didn't even get his freedom until the death of your prophet. So let's not talk about slavery relative to Islam, my brother. That's still in your Sharia. You know it's still in the Sharia. Stop it. I am wrong. Barack Hussein Obama did not liberate Libya. Correct. Correct. All right, guys. I got to get out of here. I said 10 minutes an hour ago. Ben goes, to be fair, you are pretty ape-like, Finn.
And yet, he's still on the channel.
He's my man. I don't care. I don't care what he says. I really don't care. And he knows I don't care. Mm-hmm. He said he dropped Seneca on the ground. What kind of person does such a thing? All right, guys. Much love to all you beautiful people. Then, what is your best argument for God? My best argument for God currently is that since matter is not fundamental, as I believe Donald Hoffman and Prakash have proven pretty convincingly, at least to me, mathematically speaking. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, it's a pretty involved paper. I'm going to be doing a chat with a guy named Steve McRae about this, but I'll drop some of the knowledge on you guys. I don't know if this site might be a paid site. I pay for a lot of scholarly sites for obvious reasons, but it appears to me that currently my current argument for God, Tate Prakash, he's a mathematician, okay? So Tate is a mathematician and Hoffman is a neuroscientist, among other things. And they have demonstrated that it is impossible to conceive that matter is fundamental. And since matter is not fundamental, then mind is fundamental. And if mind is fundamental, there had to be an original mind, which means that we've got mathematical proof that the being that we call God is a necessary being from a scientific perspective. So that is currently my my argument for God at this moment. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that answers any questions, but that's where I'm at. Let me see if I can put that. Yeah, there you go. There it is in the chat channel, guys. Enjoy. It's Tate Prakash and Didi Hoffman. And it's got all the mathematical formulas all there. The title of the document is entitled Objects of Consciousness. It was published in July 2022. I will say it's a pretty complex mathematical structure to let me just show you guys. I had to read this thing like 9 times. I told my friend Steve McRae, I'm like, yo, let's talk about this shit. He's like, yo, this is kind of out of my depth. I'm like, well, just read it and then we'll deal with it later. So here are some of the equations that Shaitan has put together. These are all the wonderful things you guys have to look forward to in this document. But it's really fascinating stuff. The math part about it is what was the most fascinating to me.
Did it make sense to you?
I had to read that thing about 20 times. It's about 22 pages on PDF. I had to read it about 20 times, but I finally kind of was able to put the formulations together. I'm actually going to try to get in contact with, because everybody wants to talk to Don for obvious reasons because he's so articulate about it, but I want to actually talk to Tate Prakash about it, actually.
Why?
Chaitan, because he's a mathematician. His PhD, he's in the Department of Mathematics, actually, at the University of San Bernardino. Mm-hmm. So I want to actually talk to him and get him to break down the math, and because Hoffman is really good at breaking down his theories in a digestible way. I want to see if he can get the math down into a regular way. Yeah. I haven't watched anything from Steve in ages. Are you going to be talking about this with him on his channel? We'll definitely watch. Yeah. Steve and I are going to be we're probably going to do about 3 or 4 shows together relative to idealism and physicalism and the implications and all, and also the recent issues relative to local realism. Look, man, there's a lot of really cool shit happening right now in the scientific world, man. It's really, really, really cool. Shout out to Captain Cabbage. I love the joust session. Shout out to Warith Wahid. Islamic slavery is not the transcontinental slave trade. Islamic slavery is more like servitude. There are rules regarding slavery. Manumission is the underlying theme and proper treatment. Sorry, Warith. That's not true. That's not true. Right-hand possessions are men and women that you get as a consequence, as Ghanima and Jihad. You know that, I know that. Please stop trying to westernize the deen. Don't do that. We don't need any bid'ah or anything like that. Stop trying to westernize and modernize your deen. You have right hand possessions that you legitimately get in jihad. You do get your sins forgiven if you release a slave. That is true. However, your man Muhammad kept Bilal as a slave until his dying day. Those are facts. So if you're going to say that Rasulullah ﷺ is the absolute pinnacle of human emulation, then that would mean that having a slave for the entirety of his life is still in play, because that's exactly what Muhammad did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In your own histories, you know that and I know that. So please stop trying to come in here and deceive these ignorant people. No. There is no injunction against slavery. There is no condemnation against slavery in Islam. And unfortunately, the highest pinnacle of humanity, according to you, Muhammad, held a slave until his dying day and did not free him. Unbelievable. Okay, guys. Much love. Much love to all you beautiful people.
10 minutes.
The abolitionist movement among Europeans had a second wind when they seen how Muslims treated their slaves in Egypt and the Ottoman Empire. Brutal killings and castrations. Correct. The treatment of African slaves by Arabs is absolutely, to this day, when you go to Saudi, the nickname for black people in Saudi, I know this for a fact, is Abd, which means slave. That's literally the nickname for black people in Saudi Arabia. I've been places. Listen, it was very important. It was very important for my career and my life to a degree to know what the hell people were saying over there. Arab does not equal Muslim. We know that, Warith, that Arab does not equal Muslim, but you and I both know what I'm saying. The reason that those Saudis nickname black people as Abd is because of the prevalence of slavery that was allowed in the Islamic system. You know it. These people were racist even before, during the time of Jahiliyyah, they were completely racist. And even Muhammad's friends. You heard what that boy said to Abu Darda? You heard what they said about Abu Darda? Oh, you son of a black woman. Come on, man. Come on. Don't try to come in here and like fool these people. That was even part of your, that's part of your deen, bro. You're not talking to somebody who's ignorant about the deen. And I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad at y'all for that. The only thing is, bro, don't come in here and try to fool these people. Don't try to fool these people. Prophet Muhammad condemned racism. I agree. He did condemn racism. I agree. But he didn't condemn slavery. And we know he didn't condemn slavery because he owned a slave till his dying day. Newsflash, white people are not the only people that can be racist. Black people are not the only people that can be racist. Arabs can be racist as hell, and they are. And your man Muhammad, he didn't see the connection between the continuance of the institution of slavery and racism. He didn't see the connection. So I commend him for trying to end racism, but you cannot do that when you have an entire class of people that are looked upon as slaves. Good night. All right, guys. Shout out to Warith Wahid. Much love to Warith Wahid. Brilliant brother. I love him. Great guy. Much love to all you beautiful people. I'm going to take a shower, and hopefully I can convince Soraya to stay up with me because I'll be lonely otherwise. So maybe I can guilt her. Guilt her into staying up with me. It isn't racism if you don't consider them humans. Correct. Pax Vobiscum, all you beautiful people. Later, Kai. Hold the heathen hammer high. Go ahead, Kai. Go ahead. You can hold your heathen hammer high if you want to. Just as long as you understand that Thor reports to Jesus, we're in good shape. Alright, guys. I love you all. I particularly love you, Perkinos. I love how intellectual you are, but that you still hold to the faith and you believe in the fathers. I love that shit about you, bro. Love it. How often do you do these? Probably not as much as I should, huh? Do you guys like these Ask Me Anythings? Maybe I'll do more Ask Me Anythings. Type 22 if you want to see more Ask Me Anythings. I was kind of bored today. I was like, I gotta tell you guys, I was in a pretty crappy mood. XBM. I was in a pretty crappy mood. I'm not gonna lie to you. Then I was like, let me hang out with the folks. And I hung out with the folks, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Shout out to Cat and Cabbage. Really appreciated the back and forth. This was great. Type 22 for Web Week. Type 22 for Web Week. Boy. Web, send me, more topics. Send me more, send me the set list for Web Week. Inshallah. You know what? Maybe I could bribe him to do a what do you call it? A Middle America episode with me. Maybe I can bribe him to do that, and then we'll do Web Week. I don't know. Anyway, I've said too much. I said I was gonna leave like 58 million times. So there you go, guys. Have a good one.